Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and I'm joined by Katie.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, welcome back. Also, actually, you're the first person to be here 5 times as a guest, so
Oh my God.
congratulations. Yes, I know. I was looking back and I was like, wow, that's incredible. So congratulations, first to
Thank
5.
you. I was thinking that. I was like, I've been on here a lot, and people are either going to be like, oh, that's great. She's on again. Or they're going to be like, oh my God, she's on again. She never leaves.
That's amazing. I'm sure that the reaction is the first for sure. It should be. I certainly feel that
Oh,
way. I'm
thanks.
very glad to have you back again. Katie, of course, is from Cutscenes and also newly a co-host of Left Behind Game Club. So very cool. That's some podcast change in your world since last time we were on here. I guess if somehow people do not know about the shows that you were part of, tell us about them.
Yeah, I'll give a quick little blurb here. Cutscenes is a seasonal podcast with me and two friends, Jacob McCourt and Travis Colnut, who've both been on this podcast also. And we each episode centers on a different video game related movie or TV show. And we kind of watch them, then come together, give our takes, our likes, our dislikes. It's a lot of fun. We kind of like to rib each other and just, keep it light and have a good time. But then also, may teach you a couple things about these movies. So we have that. And then also, like you said, I've joined Left Behind Game Club as another one of their hosts. They started off with Jacob, Mo, and Mike, and they've been doing awesome for, I think, over 5 years now. And they wanted to bring a couple more people on board. So I've joined on there, and yeah, and that's a lot of fun too. Kind of the same idea as what you've got going on here. A little bit less story focused, but it's a video game book club type podcast. And it's also a lot of fun, informative, fun, they keep it light. We like things. Like we like to talk about cool video games and yeah, it's a good time. So you should check them out.
Yep, 100%. Totally agree. Highly recommend both those shows. I've gotten to guest on each. They were both fun. Also, with Left Behind Game Club, there's a fair amount of crossover of games that we might cover and they might cover. And one thing I've found pretty rewarding is to play a game myself, record an episode on it, and then go see what you guys thought about it. And kind of hear things that, oh, I totally missed that thing.
Yeah,
Or,
that's a
oh,
good point.
or that's a new perspective on this, or all of that. So that's something I really, really enjoy about podcasts that are that style, but especially with Left Behind Game Club. So
Yeah, and right now they're kind of in the middle of releasing their episodes on the first season of Life is Strange.
yeah,
And that's been fun to follow along with.
yeah, that's been great. I've really loved following along with that. Yeah, if anyone's listening and they haven't checked out their Life is Strange episodes, definitely hop on that. I've really enjoyed reliving the game again through other people. It's fantastic stuff. Awesome. Cool. Well, that's a little bit about what Katie does, but of course, we know you're here to talk about Horizon Forbidden West, so this is what people want to hear about. Let's dig into that. Would you want to grab that description for us, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Explore distant lands, fight bigger and more awe-inspiring machines, and encounter astonishing new tribes as you return to the far future post-apocalyptic world of Horizon. The land is dying. Vicious storms and an unstoppable blight ravage the scattered remnants of humanity, while fearsome new machines prowl their borders. Life on Earth is hurtling towards another extinction, and no one knows why. It's up to Aloy to uncover the secrets behind these threats and restore order and balance to the world. Along the way, she must reunite with old friends, forge alliances with warring new factions, and unravel the legacy of the ancient past.
Awesome. Thank you. This was developed by Guerilla Games. We, of course, know them for developing Horizon Zero Dawn, the first game in this series. And also, they did the Killzone series, was the kind of their main thing they did before Horizon came along. So, yeah, that is our game. What it is, before we kind of dive into our recap and deeper dive and all of that stuff, though, we wanted to give a spot to kind of give some non-spoiler impressions on the game. Maybe give you some idea of maybe things we like or didn't like, or, I don't know, if this game is for you. Maybe these thoughts will help you get an idea on that. So, one thing I guess I can say off top is I loved returning to the world of Horizon with Aloy. I played, I think, 55 hours by the time we're recording. I didn't do everything. I didn't platinum it yet, but I plan to, and I want to go back and like finish up the stuff I didn't do. But I did do, I think, most of the side quest. I think all the side quests that I had found, I had done by the time I was done, and I'd looked at a large portion of the map and do want to go back to platinum it. And I'm not a trophy hunter at all. I don't platinum games ever. I don't care about that. But I did platinum Horizon Zero Dawn, and I plan to do the same thing here. So for me, I dove all in and am super into this game. So that's one of my impressions off top. What about for you?
Same. I agree. Basically, if you liked Horizon, then I guarantee you will enjoy this game. It's Horizon, but every aspect has been improved and polished a bit. I feel like every component of this game is better to some degree. Some things way better, and some things just like little bit of polishing, like I said. So yeah, if you liked Horizon before, you'll like it now. And if you've never played it before, I suggest you give it a try. Or even, you know what, if you want to try and get the first one, maybe on a sale, on a discount, and give that a try. But if you haven't played Horizon at all, please try. It's so much fun. It's just, I find it just so extremely enjoyable. Just the traversal, even just running around the world and looking at all these machines. Speaking of all the machines, there's more of them. The variety is insane. There are so many different kinds, and they are all so detailed. Like individually, each variety has so much detail put into them. It's super impressive.
Yeah, it really is. I think you said it really well. Of just, it's the first game, but better and more and bigger. And you know, which is wild because like I'm sure a lot of things try to do that, and it just doesn't happen. But Horizon Forbidden West actually did it. It was like, sure, let's make more to do. Let's add more machines. But it worked. It all like landed, which I don't know. I'm really impressed by.
Yeah, there's a lot to do, to the point where there was a lot of things that I was just like, nah, I don't need to do that. Like so you have your main story, you have your side quests, which like you, I did every side quest that I found because they were involved enough, and I felt like I got enough out of them that I was like, no, these feel kind of essential. Like you met characters that either recurred, or there was like a story that felt important to the world, that they all felt important. So I made sure to do every side quest. I did most of the errands, and most of those were like, they're fine. There wasn't anything as important there, but they still felt good enough that I didn't hate doing them. It wasn't like, you know, go get me 5 of these flowers, although they did do that once. But it was still fun. Like I was still like, oh, but it's in this valley where this new machine is I haven't seen yet. So they kind of found ways to mix those in. But where I was getting to is they have all these other things that are just kind of like little things you can do. They've got your melee pits. They've got your machine strike games. They've got hunting grounds. They've got ruins. You can get these ornaments out of these ruins. There's viewpoints that you have to figure out what the view is to match the picture. And basically all of those, I did one of them, and then I was like, yeah, I don't need to do any of those again. Like I did literally one of each of those things, and I was like, nah, I'm good. Because there's too much to do. There's so much that I'm like, I can't do all of this, and I'm going to do every side quest. So those things, they're there if you want to and if you enjoy them. And I'm sure some people really do. So that's great. But I felt like I could just kind of run by those and not feel like I was missing a whole lot.
That was my experience too. I think I did one or none of some of those periphery ones like you mentioned. I was like, I'll just mop that up when I platinum it. I don't need to do it now. But like you said, with the side quest especially, and even the errands to some degree, but like I felt like they all felt different enough too that it wasn't like, oh, it's, you know, the side quest I did on one side of the map, I'm just doing a slightly different version of it later. Instead, they felt like they gave me something rewarding, like a story or a new machine or any of that, which I was pretty surprised by. Like, I'm not, when I play, like, open world games, I do side quests, but I don't often do all of them. Horizon, I did for both games, but, like, that's not my normal way to play games either. And so I think that them just having that work was, I don't know, really cool.
Yeah, and sometimes they're following the same blueprint sometimes where it's like, "Oh, where did they go? We have to find this trail after this fight, and then you go down this way and you're going to find a machine and you're going to probably find this person who's missing." But even though sometimes it follows that same path, the story behind it is interesting enough, and the NPC that you talk to is like an individual, like with their own, we're from a different tribe, or they have a different problem going on that reflects on the bigger world. So even if some of them followed the same path, it still felt rewarding and different enough. So yeah, I really appreciated that for sure.
Actually, I guess also of the more periphery ones, the ruins, I did do a lot more of those, just because you'd get lore pieces, and I like hearing, like getting the audio logs or the diary entries or whatever of the like before times. I really enjoyed that stuff, so I would soak that up and go after that, or the orbs. I did go after those too because I like turning those in, but because I like Stemmer, he's a goof.
He is a goof. He's a lovable goof.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot here, as we've been saying. My kind of like last comment overall about it is, for me, Horizon Zero Dawn I think is my favorite game, just kind of in general. I don't know. It just really stuck with me and has just kept being a favorite. And now running into this, I'm like playing Forbidden West. I'm like, I also really love this game, and I think it's gotten to a point where I don't think I can separate them anymore. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, they just kind of go together now for me in my mind. Like for The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, I don't really separate them. I'm not like, oh, one is good and the other one's good also or one's good and I don't like one. I like both of them a lot, but just kind of pairing them together of it's the same story, it's still going, that sort of feel. And I feel like that's how Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West feel to me now. They're like, cool, they're conjoined for one of my favorite games now, kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I mean, it's a direct continuation of the same story, just everything around it is, like I said, improved. All the mechanics, the animations, the way the NPC, all the voice acting, like it's all just better. So, but the first one was already great. So we're just polishing up a good game to a even better game.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Yeah, that's all I really had on non-spoiler stuff. Did you have anything else?
No, yeah, I pretty much covered it.
Cool. Okay. Well, all right. So that's our non-spoiler section. From now on, spoilers are coming. So if you haven't played this game, or if you don't want to hear potential spoilers, we're going to deep dive into the story at large and all of that stuff. So this would be a good time to drop off if you don't want those spoilers. All right. Cool. So I think before we can even talk about the story, I think one kind of quick thing we do need to do is talk about our characters. As we mentioned, there are tons and tons of people in this game. We, of course, will not list all of them. That would take forever and probably not be very fun. But there are some key figures who you meet early in the game who I specifically want to highlight. There are some characters who are key that you do meet later in the game, but I don't know. I didn't want to mention them off rip. We'll meet them in the story. But so a couple of our key characters we've got. So we've got Aloy. She, of course, is our protagonist. She's a Nora outcast. And now she's a bit of a celebrity, I would say. She's like the savior of Meridian. When you pick up with her at the beginning of the game, she's like a legend. Everyone knows, oh, that's Aloy. She's the one who saved the world kind of thing. Then we've got Silence, who was also in the first game, and he, I guess I would say, is Aloy's kind of scheming rival. He kind of teams up with her at times, but is always scheming and sort of getting something for himself along the way, and that's sort of their relationship when this game begins. We've got Varl, who is a Nora, who's an ally of Aloy's. He showed up at the end of the last game and was with her some in the game last time, but he shows up at the end of the last one. He's one of her companions. Erend, he's a Oseram ally of Aloy's. He also was someone who was around last game and was a teammate at the end. He's a member of like the King's Guard kind of thing, so he does that. And then some new characters we get We get Zoe. She's an Utaro Gravesinger, so she's in a new tribe out in the Forbidden West. We meet her. We've got Chief Hikaru. He's the leader of the Tenakth. The Tenakth are the main kind of new tribe we meet in this game, and he is the head of them. And their tribe is made up of like 3 sub-tribes, essentially, and he's a leader over all of them. So he's kind of a big deal over there. You've got Katalo, who's a Tanakh marshal, which is basically like people who, I don't know, enforce the chief's rules and stuff like that. That's sort of his role in this. And then the last kind of main person we meet early on is Regala, who's a leader of the rebellion against Hikaru. So she is Tenakth, but her and a group of other Tenakth have kind of put off Hikaru and have started kind of a civil war that's going on there. So that's a little bit of the who's who for, I would say, the first part of the game. And again, we will meet many other people along the way.
Yeah, I think that's most of them, I believe. I'm trying to think back because it's a long game. But yeah, that pretty much covers everybody.
Yeah, a lot of folks. So I think also in addressing these characters, we probably have favorites. So I was curious, who are some of your like favorite characters in this game?
So first and foremost, I love Aloy. Some people, since the game has come out, there's been some discourse about some people being middling or being like, well, you know, she's very stubborn and she makes mistakes and she's kind of not harsh, but she's kind of dry and she's not the most affectionate person. And for some reason, I relate to all of those things. I'm stubborn. I can be dry. I just relate to what she says when she's like, just says something back to somebody where she's just unimpressed with something that somebody said. And she makes like a snarky comment. I'm like, that's my girl. That's my girl. And yes, she's extremely stubborn. And that's me, even in her mistakes. So I love Aloy in spite of her flaws. And then I have others, but I'll let you go.
I likewise love Aloy. I'm a big proponent of Team Aloy for sure. I really like her. I like too that like you see these flaws she has or issues, but that her like big aim is that she cares about the world, humanity, that kind of thing. And so it's like that's her driving force, even when she like is put off by people or doesn't want help or you know like that those kinds of things. It's like I don't know. I really like her a lot as a hero, and I think getting to see her like progress in that too, like from the previous game, right? She was an outcast. She has like no reason to care about people, really, especially in the first game. Now she's like developed friends, kind of, even though she remains distant at times or whatever. But
she's coming around.
Yeah, she's coming around. You see her have, you know, interactions with people where she is coming around in there. But I really like her too, and yeah, I'm all about Aloy. Another character I liked a lot is Varl. I feel like he's just so wholesome. He's just such a good guy. And, you know, there are these different times where Aloy is like, sure, I like being friends, but then we'll like, I don't know, run away in the middle of the night or something like that. And Varl's like, well, I still want to help you. Like he's just committed. Also like 1000% respects Aloy and is like behind her kind of thing, which I don't know. I think he's just a gem for sure.
Yeah, Varl's a gem. The end. Like he's just a nice guy. He's like your best friend. Like he is loyal. He's nice. He's everything you would want in like your best friend. And he's kind of I don't know, he's endearing. So yeah, no, love Varl for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had one more person who I wanted to highlight is I like Katalo quite a bit as well. Because when you meet him, he just seems to be this like asshole warrior guy. But he comes around as time goes and like really respects you as like a warrior, but as a leader, as a person, like all of that stuff. And I thought that was cool to see that he was more than just you know, I'm in a warrior clan and we do war guy stuffs. Like I don't know, I thought that was cool.
Well, his whole story arc kind of serves to fleshing him out, which is, I mean, I think we'll get into it, but he loses his arm pretty early in the story. As a person who's built his entire identity on being like the strongest warrior, having this physical difficulty kind of happen to him He takes it really hard, and then that kind of makes him not doesn't he kind of shows that he can have like some weakness and embrace like some emotional vulnerability. That's the word I'm looking for. And he kind of like entrusts other people. Like kind of entrusts Aloy with the fact that he's kind of struggling like emotionally with this thing, and that he wants to at one point kind of try and get like a prosthetic, and that it's a challenge for him. And I feel like that helps a lot to make him more human and multidimensional, and yeah, just kind of show different aspects of his personality instead of I am the best warrior in the end and that's all I have to deal with. Like it's his story is kind of one of my favorite arcs as far as your secondary characters go.
Yeah, it's cool that he has to kind of reconcile, like, to him, right? His whole value is that I'm an ultimate warrior. But like you said, he loses an arm, and so then he's like, okay, how can I am still valuable, or how could I still be valuable, or what will I do? And I have a lot of things to offer, and including being able to still be a warrior, but also like these other things. Yeah, he's still great with one arm. He's still better than most people. It's kind of just like
culturally within the Tanakh, it seems to be a thing of like, oh, well, you're damaged now, so you're not as good, so therefore you're not strong, so therefore we kind of push you to the side. It's more of like kind of a cultural thing rather than him actually being weak, because he's still, like you said, a very, strong warrior.
Yep, totally. Yeah, those were a couple of my highlighted people. Did you have other people that you wanted to talk about?
I love Erend. See, Erend he's kind of like Varl in that he's super loyal. He's got your back, but he'll give Aloy a harder time about things a little bit. And he'll kind of be like, hey, you keep doing that thing where you take off or you push us away, and I'll be here when you need me, but like, it's not cool. Like, he'll kind of dig at her a bit more and poke and prod and say, that's not cool that you're doing this thing. But then he's still like your best friend. Like, I love Erend. I always want to see what Erend has to say. He's kind of like the big Oseram who's kind of like this technology, like they're like, oh, here's all this technology and information and like literature to look at and learn things. And he's like, oh God, okay. And he's overwhelmed, but then he still like is like, no, I can do this. And he tries really hard, even though that's not his game at all. But yeah, he's like, no, I can do this. Just give me some time and I can do this.
I really liked getting updates from him as to what he's learning. He's like, I found heavy metal. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Or things like that. But I agree. It's like his whole like natural tendency is like, I'm a big dude. I like drink a bunch of beers and I kill people with my axe. That's what I do. And then it's like, well, we need you to like learn to read and things like that. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I really like him too. He's a good member of the crew, for sure. Awesome, cool. Yeah, so these are a couple of our favorites. There are also many, many other characters. Also, unfortunately, probably even along the way, like we mentioned, there are side quest characters who we probably enjoyed, who we may not even talk about in this because we will largely stay to the main story because we want to be here a somewhat reasonable amount of time. Even though there's plenty of things to talk about and plenty of people you meet throughout this game who have good stuff to tell. So if for some reason someone you love doesn't come up, sorry that they don't come up and that they were in one side quest or something. But I don't know. There's so much that's great that's here. But yeah, also I asked online what other people's favorite characters are. So we've got a couple responses. Connor on Twitter said, I'd knock back a few brews with Erend any day. Totally agree. Katalo was an interesting new addition, and I like getting to know him so far. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're both with you there.
Tom on Twitter says, really liking Katalo's intensity in contrast to Erend being the doofus of the game. Varl's performance is really good, and his relationship with Zoe and her character is well done. I agree. Yeah, their like flirtation and then growing into relationship was believable. I was like, yeah, I buy into this very much. And just, I don't know, they were very tender. It was very sweet.
They were nice. I enjoyed getting to like come back and talk with them every like I don't know, after I'd played for a while and come back and see kind of, oh, they've been at the base and like, oh, they moved their stuff into the room together, or like this thing's going on with them. And
Or they're having a little argument about something trivial, but
yeah.
and he's like, Varl's like, I screwed it up, and what do I do? And she's like, yeah, he knows he screwed up. I'm like, very nice. That's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Daniel on Twitter said Silence and Sakura were pretty interesting. And then Larry on Twitter said, my same favorite character from Horizon Zero Dawn, Petra. But for the new characters, it's Delilah and Boomer.
Yes. Yeah, Delilah and Boomer are fantastic. That was also a nice, that was a side quest, I believe.
Yeah.
Which, that was just cool because it's two sisters and one of them kind of is a little bit detached from just like how she socializes with people and kind of focuses in on what she's doing. And then Dela is just kind of like socializes normally and kind of has a hard time understanding how Boomer sees the world. And that's another thing that it kind of develops, and then she kind of realizes like, no, she's good. Like she's fine the way she is. Like she just sees and experiences things differently from me, which is a real life scenario that happens in a lot of families, right? But yeah, I thought that was really well done, and I loved following up with them.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed that. And getting to see them grow to understand each other too, because I think in that side quest, like, Boomer had left to go, like, she likes to make explosive weapons, and so she went off to go do that, but they'd had kind of an argument before, so Dela was like, oh, we had a fight, so she got mad and left, and Boomer's like, oh no, I just had an explosive idea, so I went and solved my problem.
She's like, we were mad? What do you mean? Because she doesn't have the same experience with social interactions. So she was like, I don't understand. What do you mean that you felt mad? Like, I didn't feel mad. Maybe you felt mad, but I didn't feel mad, and I'm fine. And everything's great. And then that's it.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I enjoyed that.
Sonia on Twitter says Beta and Alva. Interesting. So I liked them both. I actually liked Beta more the longer we were around her. At first I appreciated that I just liked listening to her. Like Ashley Birch did a tremendous job voicing two different characters who are the same person. Like they're both spoilers, but we're already there. They're both clones of Elizabeth Sobek. So it's the same person, but they're totally different. And I thought Beta was voiced in a very interesting way where she was kind of anxious and she's kind of like approaches things intellectually and is very different from Aloy. And I just like listening to her talk. And then the more she got comfortable, the more I felt comfortable with her. And yeah, I grew to like Beta a lot. And Alva's just nice. She's just a lovely time.
Yeah, I felt like by the end of the game, I was like super into Beta and really enjoyed her and like to see her begin to open up and have like hope in her life and things like that.
And Chris on Twitter says Zoe seemed like a nice character. Beta too. Agreed.
Nice. Morgan on Twitter said, I liked Aaron's evolution from being a dude bro dick to someone with depth who feels for his sister, wants to feel fulfilled by doing a good job and fighting for his friends. I liked that too along the way, because there were definitely different times where Aaron, when he'd kind of scold you for like ditching, he would also be like, I just wish I was someone you thought could help you, kind of thing. Like he could get kind of down on himself, and it was more than just being like I don't know, just the macho guy with the axe or whatever.
Yeah, he's more hurt by Aloy detaching than he is angry. Like he takes it kind of personally, which is interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And then lastly, Eski on Twitter said, I loved Alva's enthusiasm. Kutalo had some refreshing depth, stares at Erend, so I don't think that the depth for Erend worked for them, which is all right. But I think one of the comments they made, though, about Alva's enthusiasm, I did really like that when, so Alva's, like, role is kind of the knowledge gainer for her tribe of, like, I'm just supposed to learn things. And so when Aloy kind of opens up more learning to her, she's like, oh my god, more things to learn? Like, she's so about it, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and with no limitations, too. Whereas her tribe, the Quen, I think, are very like, no, this is what you're going to learn and this is who you're going to tell it to, and you're not going to tell it to other people, and like this is the zone that you're going to work in, and you're not going to share it with anybody except for the people that we tell you to share it with. And so yeah, you take those chains off and she's like, yes, I get to learn and I get to teach too. So and it just, and her voice too, and like her face is just like bright, is very bright, whereas a lot of other people can be kind of like dour and this is very serious, and she's like, this is awesome, I'm learning so many things. And yeah, she's like I said, she's a bright light.
Yeah, she's really nice to get with that for such a lot of the people we meet just kill the things that are around them, and that's their vibe. And like, she can do that, but that's not who she is. You know, she's that light, that energy kind of thing, like you described.
Yeah, and the interaction between everyone is great. Like Katalo, like when you ask people, each character, like, oh, what do you think about so and so? And they're like Katalo's opinion of Alva is funny, where he's like, well, I mean, yeah, she's nice, but like I don't think that she can like hold her own anywhere. Like we throw her out there, she's gonna die. And then Aloy's like, no, like give her a chance. And then eventually he kind of respects her more. And like someone earlier mentioned, just like people interacting with other people is very, very interesting because they're all very, very different.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. Just kind of seeing, okay, you go back to base and you're like, oh, what has so and so learned about someone? It's like, oh, Zoe and Aaron got into some arguments because Aaron was being an asshole, and so put him in his place, or like things like that. Is great. I really enjoyed that. Cool. All right. I feel like we've got a good who's who. Those are our characters. Now, finally, on to our main event. The recap, we're going to dive deep into the story itself of Horizon Forbidden West. Now, the game begins 6 months after Horizon Zero Dawn, and Aloy has been looking for a backup for Gaia to repair the terraforming system. We're in this spot where the land's dying. It's not going well. There's this red, I think they call it the blight, and it gets all over like the plants and just like kills the plants. It's toxic to the animals. It's bad for people. It's a mess. The world is not going well. Even though they defeated what they needed to at the end of the last game, the world is still against them, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. It takes a little bit to get going, I'm going to be honest. The introduction, like the tutorial section, I was like, this is okay. Like I was a little bit concerned because I was so hyped for this game, and then I was playing that part and I was like, this is fine. And then kind of once we get to the open world, that's where it really clicked for me. But yeah, this is just kind of like setting the base of where are we? What are we doing?
I agree. I liked once the world opened up too, because when you feel constrained, it feels weird because that's not a thing I felt or remember from my time playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm sure that, I guess Horizon probably started off that same way back in the Nora area, but it didn't feel that way because it was the first time you played. You didn't know. But, you know, most of your time playing Horizon Zero Dawn was in your big world. And so being confined in this tutorial section was a little strange at first. But yeah, fortunately it is small by the time you end the game where you're in this section. So that's nice. While Aloy's off searching for this Gaia backup, Varl catches up with Aloy and ends up teaming up with her. She gives Varl a focus, which he accepts, which is interesting because the Nora are, against technology. They don't engage with it, but Varl is like, okay, cool, I trust you, Aloy, I'll do this. He starts using the focus, and, his mind's blown like Aloy's was when she first used the focus back in the first game. And they make their way through this Far Zenith data center, because Aloy thinks that maybe a Gaia backup would be here, and she goes through, and they ultimately end up finding a fake copy of Gaia that at first it looks like you're downloading it, but then a hologram pops up and it's like, no, this isn't it, sort of thing. You got duped. So their search has to continue, and the Far Zenith base, or the Zenith base that they were at there, the data center, gave some coordinates out west for... No, it didn't give them coordinates. It's a no-go, and so Varl convinces, I think, Aloy to return to Meridian because maybe they can kind of figure out the next place to look from there, kind of recoup. So they go back to Meridian. It gets a welcome from King of Odd. You start to kind of see some of the old folks, and she goes and investigates the spire. which was where the last game ended. There was a big battle in Meridian, and her lance like went into the machine she fought, and I don't know, the ground around there is looking weird, right? There's kind of all the people are kind of freaked out by a light from it. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, the beginning is a little vague. When you don't really have a strong purpose, the main thing that I took from the beginning is just looking at the Far Zenith data center. Like, I don't remember them mentioning these people in the first game. Am I right? Is this the first time that they've mentioned them?
I feel like if they did, it had to have been really periphery. I didn't remember them either.
No. So, which is basically like a group of people that when Horizon Zero Dawn, when the event was happening with the apocalypse, where this group of people took off into space to try to find somewhere else that was habitable since this whole planet was, being destroyed. That was the most interesting part that I took from this whole thing, because I don't find Silence to be that. I have a hard time with Silence. I like the voice actor. I like how he talks and like just the writing, but his motivations are always so shrouded that I don't know what he wants or what he's doing. I don't know what our conversations are. Like, I'm like, what is this? What are we doing? Like, and Aloy doesn't really know what he wants. So I have a hard time with Silence as a antagonist, and I did in the first game.
Right. Yeah, like you said, it's so mystery. It's such there's always a veil kind of thing. And I feel similarly. I like the voice actor. I think that the character is like interesting as a concept and stuff, but I'm like, what do you want? What's your end game?
Where are you from? Like, what is your base motivation? Even if it's not like, oh, you're like it doesn't have to be what you want right now, but like, I feel like I don't know enough about him to be interested by him as far as like trying to guess what he's trying to do. I'm just like, I don't know what you want. You want power in some way, but you kind of want the world to be okay. So I don't know. Yeah, the beginning of the game was a little tough for me.
Yeah, I feel like he almost seems like he's like he might have the same desires as Aloy a lot, but just is
just a completely different approach.
Yeah, a mysterious approach that often seems kind of bad. Like that's sort of like the vibes you get, or when you get things understood. You just sort of see that, but a lot of it is just he makes for a kind of strange rival for Aloy, I would say, because like she in the game she shows that she really hates him, but to me the player, I'm not like I don't always feel the same way Aloy does. I'm more like, all right, I'm, what are you exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes, though, to the final battle site. She pulls her, like, lance out, and a hologram or a call from Silence pops up. And he's like, oh, you finally, like, figured out my ruse. You're dumb. It took you 6 months. And he tells you that he took Hades. So when you, like, used his spear on the machine, it took Hades and it transported Hades to where Silence was. And so Silence is in the Forbidden West with Hades. He says, hey, if you want to like understand my ruse, come get me, kind of thing. And so Aloy's like, all right, fuck that, I'm gonna go get him. So Aloy and Varl are gonna head to the Forbidden West, but the Forbidden West, of course, is forbidden. You're not allowed to go there. So the Tenakth live out there, and they're basically like a super warrior tribe. The kind of reputation they have is like, if you walk on their side of the line, they're just going to kill you because you're not supposed to be there. Like, that's the reputation they have. Meanwhile, we know the Karja. That's Avad's kind of clan, who we dealt with a lot in the last game. And the Karja and the Tenakth have like a bloody history. They had Avad's dad was like the Mad Sun King, and he did a lot of bad stuff to the Tenakth back in the day. So there's a lot of bad blood wariness between these two tribes. And so the Karja have been trying to repair relationships with the Tenakth, and they have an embassy that is actually coming up in a couple days. So Aloy and Varl want to go to that embassy. If they go to that embassy, they could get a rite of passage from the Tenakth there, to be able to go find Silence, to be able to figure out what's going on with this blight and hopefully fix the terraforming system. That's sort of their goal at this point. So they get ready to go do that, but then Aloy ditches Varl in the night. They make plans to leave together in the morning, and then Aloy just leaves early because she again wants to do everything alone.
That's what she does, man. She ditches people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she could probably cover it with well, I'm trying to keep him safe. It's nah, you just like to do things solo. It's just who you are. What are you going to do? So yeah, she does exactly what she always does. And she ditches him.
Yep. So from here, we pick up with Aloy, and she meets the Carja representative on the way to the embassy. And he's at the top of this ski lift, essentially. This big ski lift.
Like a gondola.
Yeah. And he won't enter the valley because it's said to be dangerous. There are machines down there. This guy's a dick and sucks. He's like a priest almost sort of thing of the Carja. He's like a representative of Avad. And he's clearly not a fighting person. He's like someone who lives in the capital city and just does shit like that. So he won't enter the valley because there's machines in there. But Erend and the guard have gone ahead to clear the way. And I guess that the valley will be declared clear by the town down there when the town's mayor blows this horn, and that will declare it. So he says, I won't go ahead until that's cleared. And you're like, fine, I'll clear the valley. Screw you. So Aloy goes down, kills her way through the machines, makes her way to that town, and meets Olvind, who's kind of the mayor of this town. And while you're there, you find out that Olvind's a piece of crap and basically wants to slow the Carja down because he doesn't want a treaty between the Tenakth and the Carja, because he sort of operates as sort of I'm a guy in the middle, I'm a merchant, I make a lot of money from both of these people. And if they don't like each other or don't at least have peace, if they're more kind of neutral-ish feeling, then that's good for me because then I sort of reap all the benefits sort of guy.
Yeah. Olvind is the everyone's worst concept of a politician. He is a politician's politician who all of his decisions do not revolve around what's actually going to benefit everybody. It's literally either what's going to either make him money or what will give everyone the perception that he is doing good by them. Whether it's true or not, he's like, oh no, they'll think that I have their back. Therefore, that's the thing that I'm going to do. So yeah, he's a trash bag.
Yeah, total trash bag. Yeah, anything that makes him look good, that's what he'll do. Anything that makes him money, it's fine. No, he's totally the politician of no, there's nothing that's right or wrong. It's just what benefits me and keeps me in power kind of thing. But Aloy makes him blow the whistle. She basically traps him in if this or this happens, then you'd have to blow the whistle, right? And he's like, sure, I guess so. And then you go do those things and you make him eat his words and blow the whistle. The valley's declared safe. This gets the embassy jerk down there. You meet Erend along this way. And so now you're ready to have the embassy meeting finally. But it is slow to commence because only 2/3 of the Tenakth banners have been raised. So the Tenakth have 3 tribes. Hekaro is the leader over all of them. And then you've got 3 tribes within there. I think they each represent a different region within the Tenakth lands. But one of the groups didn't show up yet. Or they did show up, but they won't put their banners up to say, cool, that's embassy kind of thing. And because that's not there, it hasn't... The Carja can't come out because they don't want to disrespect the traditions of the embassy kind of thing. So Aloy goes outside of the wall to go figure out what's going on her own. She gets there and she meets a guy named Marshal Freshov, who is a guy who was a Carja during the Red Raids, but he got captured and has since become a Tenakth marshal. So not just a Tenakth, but he's a marshal. He's one of Hekaro's... police force makes them seem bad. Something better than that. A governor, maybe? Something like that, of that almost. He's someone who keeps order, or a peacekeeper. Maybe that'd be a better term. but something of that range. So he's actually like a fairly significant Tanakh person at this point, a representative, all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, and he's done well. Like he's like no, and he seems to have like gained respect for the Tanakh, whereas everyone kind of assumed that he was being held, that he was still like a prisoner specifically. And no, he is one of them, and he seems to, which the fact that he joined them and that he kind of understands them kind of makes you go, oh, like the Tanakh can't be all bad, right?
Yeah, totally. Because the whole perception, like everyone in the Karja, everyone you've met before this is like, oh, they're just like bloodthirsty. They just kill everyone and they don't have feelings. Like that's almost how they try to present them. And then you meet this guy and he's like, the Tanakh have good ways. The Karja have good ways. They also both have bad ways. And I'm really hoping that I can be a key part in kind of repairing this relationship. I was once Karja. I do consider myself Tanakh now. I knew Avad before he was king. I want to help set things right. That's sort of his aim. And he also recognizes that you're on a mission that's important. And so he says, I'll give you passage into the Tanakh lands. Like, let's do this embassy. Once that happens, I'll give you that. I'll give you my like medallion that shows that you should be in Tanakh land, so people won't just like kill you on sight. You get that sorted out. The last banner's raised. The Karja embassy comes out. But then a group of rebels, led by Regala, attack as the embassy's coming. All the Karja get killed. Varl's with you. He doesn't get killed, but he manages to escape back towards the town we were at. The Tanakh marshals largely get slaughtered while this is going on as well by the rebels. It's like a bloodbath for them. Like the rebels also have machines that they've overridden, which the Tanakh don't do. They haven't done this before. Regala is unique in having rebels who have machines. So this is a very lopsided attack, basically. Aloy, though, is able to survive because a rebel champion comes with this glider down to her to fight her kind of one-on-one. And Aloy's able to best him and kill the champion, and so Regala's like, okay, you've earned your life for now. And the rebels leave after massacring basically everyone else.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm so happy we got that glider pretty early in the game, because that is a lot of fun. And yeah, Regala's great. Angela Bassett voices her. She's not in the game a whole lot, but she has that gravitas, you know? She just starts talking and you listen. Like, whoa, she's she's dangerous. She's good.
Oh yeah, she's great. She is definitely a highlight for that. I felt like every time some Regala battles were going on, I was super interested. I thought that was cool. I'm glad we got the glider early on too. At first I was not like as impressed with it. I was like, oh, do I like this glider? And then as the time went on, I was like, I really like this glider. I'm jumping off of everything. And walking as little as I have to, because I'm just going to try to glide as far as I can. This, of course, gets Aloy back on her Aloy moves, which is continuing on alone. She leaves Varl behind again. It says, you're hurt. You got to rest up. Come see me later. So
oh no, you can't follow me. Oh, that's so sad. You should heal up. You should stay here and heal up. That's the best thing for you. I'm so sad. And she really likes him too. That's the thing that kills me, is that he's like one of her best friends, and she's still like, nah, you stay here.
Right. Oh yeah. I can't imagine if you were someone who she didn't like. If you tried to like, hey, I want to be on your journey, she would just be so rude, probably. But even for, someone she really, really likes, like Varl, it's like, sorry, you gotta go. I gotta go. You're staying here. So Aloy then goes into the Forbidden West. And she makes her way to the coordinates that Silence gave her. And she finds a hologram there of Silence interrogating Hades to get information about Gaia. So he's also after the Gaia backup like you were. He interrogates Hades, and you get led to where Hades is. There's like a big drag mark in the ground, so you know that's where Hades went. You go and find Hades. Hades is basically like insane from being tortured by Silence. Uh, you also learn how to craft Fire Gleam, which is there's like this kind of red fossil-y looking stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like half flowers, half crystals, kind of growth in certain places that kind of block the way in some time, and you've kind of encountered it already if you've been exploring on your way. And it's like, oh, now I can do that thing. So basically you can just stick your staff in there and blow it up. So that kind of opens up a lot of areas for you, opens up some ruins and like ways to solve some puzzles. So it's kind of one of your first big unlocks.
Yep. Yeah, now you could maybe blow through a wall that's door was locked or something like that. So that happens. You also make your way to this like locked hatch where there's supposedly a copy of Gaia in there. And you end up being able to get inside because you have Elizabeth Sobek's genes. So you can say Elizabeth Sobek Alpha Prime or whatever and get inside. And you get inside and you do find a backup of Gaia. In fact, you find 2 backups of Gaia. So you take one, and while you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, do I like take the backup or, whatever, some real spacey people who look real futuristic show up. And they include a woman who looks a lot like Aloy. Which gives Aloy a, like, da fuck kind of moment. And they show up and, feel kind of immediately in charge. They're like, oh, kill her. Grab the Gaia thing. Let's go. And Aloy's like, oh, fuck. And so she tries to fight them very briefly, and they're invincible. They're almost like futuristic gods of sorts. And Aloy ends up being able to escape because she gets knocked off a platform into like a flooded section below. And so they like try to kind of shoot down at her, but she just kind of sneaks away in the water, and they're kind of careless and are like, whatever, she's probably dead. She fell in the water kind of thing. So this is pretty crazy.
Yeah, this whole sequence made me go, the fuck? Very much. So, okay, on multiple levels. So, first of all, as soon as I saw what we later learn is beta, I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Why did we assume that Aloy was the only clone? She's a clone. Like, they made one. Why wouldn't there be more? So I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense that there'd be others. But I was still surprised. And then just these like space type, like futuristic space people that show up, I was like, oh, this is very different from what we've had. This is like the new thing that we have in this game as opposed to what we've experienced so far and from the last game, whereas it has only been tribes and like tribes that have grown since Zero Dawn, since basically the apocalypse, where they're all kind of at the same spot, where the old technology is like residual from the people that died before, that they don't really know how it works and all this stuff. And these people come in and they seem obviously to know how technology works very well. And it's very different. And I was like, oh, and I initially did not know how I felt. When we kind of learned who they are and why they're here, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And we kind of planted the seeds earlier in the game. So it made sense, but it was just, like I said, it's just so different from everyone else that you encountered in this game and the last game that it surprised me that we were kind of going down that direction. And I didn't know if I liked it at first. And I still don't know if I like it. I'm undecided, but more so at the beginning. I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, but
yeah. I think for me, like you said, my first kind of response was just total like shock about it. And then as time's gone, I have been into it more and more. I don't know if overall, I don't know. At the end of the game, I guess we'll have some more thoughts on that. But I think that they landed it still pretty well, because I think if you said, I played this game, and then our clone had another clone. Also, there were people from space who were futuristic who showed up.
Yes.
That would normally sound like they jumped the shark. Like you'd be like, "What the
Yes,
fuck is that?"
totally. If you're just fast pitching that and you're like, yeah, there's more clones and there's space people, you're like, what are we doing? Like, that's not Zero Horizon. Like, come on.
Right? Yeah, it would sound bad, but because of all the context they give us and the things that happen after this, instead, I feel like at minimum I would feel okay, if not liking it. Like which I don't know. I don't know how they pulled that off because I think that that fast-pitched version of this could sound like a giant mess, and you'd be like, "I hate that. That sounds terrible," kind of thing. But I don't know. They made it work, and they explained it well within the world and all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And it is a logical way to bring in, because I'm sure they're like, okay, what's the new thing? Like, what's the new antagonist aside from Silence and Hades? Like, what else are we going to do? And they're like, oh, well, like these people would have left, like basically all the richest people of the world and all the most powerful people would have been like, the world's ending, bye, like we're gonna head out and take off in a rocket and we're gonna go find somewhere else to live because we can. And that makes perfect sense. And then yeah, it kind of how the story unfolds, it all makes sense and is logical and fits within the world. So I don't dislike it at all. Like I more like it, but I don't know. There are certain aspects of how it kind of unfolds at the end that I'm not a huge fan of. But generally speaking, I like it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we are on the same page there for sure. I feel similar. Cool. So we meet our space friends. However, Aloy in her escape is kind of injured. She like escapes kind of through the water of the building and then kind of like collapses into a riverbed or something like that outside of there. And so then we pick up with Aloy waking up, and she finds out that she got rescued by Varl. He met a woman named Zoe from the Otaro clan, and they decided to help Varl and Aloy. So Aloy's been getting bed rest. She's pretty beat up, and she's in a spot where she legit just needs to rest. You can't do anything. You are too hurt. If you continue, you aren't going to be able to accomplish anything, kind of thing. So Aloy, for a little while, has to do what Aloy would hate, which is stopping. Like, she just has to slow down. Meanwhile, Varl and Zoe are going to go to the Ataro kind of council to talk to them in their capital city called Plainsong to request access to this cauldron. Because the Ataro are likewise dealing with the Blight, their land's dying, they have these problems. But the Ataro are super superstitious, I guess. They basically believe certain machines are land gods, kind of thing. I don't know. If there was like a hippie tribe, they would sort of be that mode, kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah. They're the tribe of the earth, you know. I love how all of the tribes are very different and have their own like cultural beliefs and their own the things that they put importance into, and also that their look, like the look of their clothing reflects that. And I think that they do a really, really, really good job making these games in differentiating these tribes. And they all have different beliefs, and also their beliefs like kind of interact with the state of the world. Because yeah, the Utaro live in an area where the like terraforming machines are, where they like do the crops, like they like harvest things and seed things, and they like maintain the land, these machines. So like it would make sense, they'd be like, yeah, these are like land gods, like they feed us, like, and they make sure that the land is working and like the crops are going well, and like we're dependent on them. And then yeah, no, they're the hippie tribe, and they all, I think it's so neat that they all carry like a seed pouch like on their body at all times. And when they die, what they do is they take their seed pouch and they plant it so that it's like they're not forgotten, because then something grows from from their death. It's really interesting. Like like I said, they do a fantastic job of having so much history and culture within each tribe that it's fun to investigate.
Yeah, I really like that about the seed pouch thing. I was like, I'm not a hippie at all, but should I buy a seed pouch now? Like, and carry it around with me from now on? Like that, I don't know. That seems nice because their whole thing is like, death brings life and like the cycle and you're part of it and like that kind of thing. And I don't know. I like that. And also, like you said, their experience with machines is only good, right? It's the terraforming machines. They've been good. They haven't really run into corrupted machines until recently, which is a bit of a shock for like Aloy or Varl because they've never met a good machine. The only machines they've ever met are, I don't know, the Pharaoh Plague type where they just try to kill you because you're around kind of thing. So the Utaro have experienced a very different machine life experience kind of thing. But recently, corrupted machines have been starting to attack the tribe. The land is dying, things like that. And they've got this cauldron where the land gods would go once a year. And I think basically they'd go there and they'd get kind of reprogrammed or like booted up or fixed by the machine the cauldron a little more, and then go back out and keep providing. But now the gods have gone in and then they come out bad and more bad machines are coming. And so they're in this spot where the cauldron is viewed as a holy place where the machines go, even though it's bringing badness, like corrupted machines and stuff. It's not really a place you're supposed to go. On the other hand, for Aloy or other people, we do need to solve this though, and like Aloy, having her knowledge of everything in the first game, is like, I know what's in there. I can fix this. Like, let me go in there.
Yeah, they're not gods, they're machines, and there's a place in there that maintains them, and the thing that's maintaining that machine is not working anymore. Like, she's very pragmatic, and which comes with just having the knowledge base of like what is actually happening. Yeah, and trying to convince someone who's like, no, this is how I've always known the world of that is a little tricky, right?
Yep. Yeah. So, you go before the council, they ignore you. They basically have the philosophy of like, well, we're a part of the cycle. If the machines kill us and we die and our seed pouch brings new life later, that's fine. And Aloy and Varl are like, you're stupid. And Zoe is I think a pretty progressive Utaro. So she has her beliefs, she believes in these things, but she's not simply a like what the council says is always right or, any of that kind of stuff. Instead, she's kind of someone who pushes buttons. And so when the corrupted machines break out of the cauldron and attack a bunch of people, Aloy, Varl, and so are like, well, cool, we don't need permission anymore. It's a war zone, we're just going to go do it. And so they go and they override the cauldron. They, no more corrupted machines are coming out of there. And so from here, Aloy, Varl, and Zoe go set up a home base. And it's this old lab where the terraforming systems kind of used to be, I think. And they reboot Gaia that Aloy had picked up earlier. And Aloy tells them that she needs to gather subordinate functions to have enough power to trap Hephaestus. So Hephaestus is kind of the, bigger AI that they need to be able to solve the terraforming issues. But Hephaestus is big, like Gaia is big. So if you get enough subordinate functions under Gaia, Gaia will be bigger and then be able to override Hephaestus. And so Gaia sends out kind of a signal of, okay, where are all the other subordinate functions around the world? Can we go get any? And she gets coordinates for Ether, Poseidon, and Demeter. And they're kind of scattered around the Forbidden West. And so Aloy is like, okay, I'll go get them. But the kind of memory storage that Aloy has is only big enough to pick up one at a time. So you've got to go pick up, one of them, come back, upload it to Gaia. It's now a part of Gaia. Then go out, do it again, and then do it that third time. So that sort of gives us our mission for the game, by and large, is go get these three. In this time, Erend comes and joins you at the base. So then you've got Varl, Zoe, and Erend, all with focuses, all training with Gaia, all getting ready for what comes next with getting Hephaestus and all of that. So their kind of role is to get ready. Aloy is going to go out and do the stuff.
Yeah, I was happy to have set up a base that also wasn't too big, because if you give me a hub that's like massive, I my sense of direction is terrible and I just get lost. But no, it is a simple hub. It's a big circular room with little rooms coming off the ends or surrounding it. And I liked that all my people were in one spot and that I could go back and talk to them and see if they had new things to say, and that they were all interacting with each other also kind of in the same place. So yeah, that was the part of that I liked the most. That was like, oh good, we're all together, we're all talking, and we're all interacting, and that's fun.
Yeah, I like that I could just go back. Like, for me, at least the way I played was I would solve one of these, then I'd go back before I'd go talk to Gaia. I'd just talk to everyone there and do all my conversation pieces, then talk to Gaia, then head back out and kind of repeat. And I like that of kind of okay, I've done a lot of intense stuff out in the world for a while, and then I just get a lot of character depth and kind of new assignments and stuff like that before I head back out, which, I don't know, that really worked for me of like, lots of game stuff going on and then lots of conversation, lots of game, that kind of thing.
Pacing wise, it was nice. And also I liked, it's a little thing that they did where they put little indicators over top of characters when they had something new to say. I was like, thank you so much for doing that, so that I'm not just like going back and being like, do they have new things to say? And then I talk to everybody and like, nope, nothing came of that. It's like, no, it was usually if something had happened, like along the lines of the single player campaign of like something we had accomplished something, usually that's when they'd have something new to say, and there'd be an indicator to tell me who had something to say. So I wasn't wasting time going around to people, and they were like, oh no, there was no point in that.
I appreciated that a lot. And then inside the conversation too, if it was something you'd talked about, it was like grayed out.
Yeah, it was like grayed out. Yes. That's great. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, that was huge, because that made it too worth it. I just felt like it was worth it every time I talked to them, that I didn't, stumble onto a conversation I had 10 hours ago or something. Like, instead it was all fresh, all new, all stuff, and that you knew that they interacted with each other along the way. I feel like a game could have been clumsy with this and had them all independently do things, but not, like, acknowledge each other. So I really like that they did that.
It's really like it's actually happening, where they're all living in the same space together and having, human interactions, which sometimes go well and sometimes go poorly, and that they would have things to say about that.
Yeah, and bringing together such a different group of people. Right now it's somewhat different, but as time goes, we get more allies, and none of these tribes are alike, and their outlooks and things like that. And like, you have some of that of like, we play Machine Strike together. That's fun. And the characters like talk about how they did that, or, they're kind of weird, or that kind of thing. So I like that.
Aaron calls Zoe's tribe like I forget what, something about like grass people or something like that, and she takes offense, stuff like that. But it's like, oh, you all worked out your differences. It's a little bit idealistic, maybe, I guess. But I'm like, this is so nice. People from different places can get along.
Yeah, it's good. And I think that they're all just like figure that out too, because they're committed to Aloy. They're committed to the mission.
They have a common goal for sure.
Yeah, they've got that common goal. And I think that they all trust Aloy, or that Aloy trusts them enough that she'd invite them into the crew.
That's
kind of
true.
Thing.
That kind of gives them, near the end of the game, where the last couple people that she brings in, she's like, hey, I've got somebody new. They're like, great, send them over. Because, they trust Aloy's judgment of who she's bringing into their little team. Yeah, you're right, for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, that stuff is cool. I really like this as your kind of respite along the way. Cool. Okay. So this heads us off to our first subordinate function. You technically can do these in any order you wish, but they do give you recommendations on your like skill level for each one. So Ether is the easiest one. Poseidon's the middle one. Demeter's the hardest one, so to speak. And they are all at locations that are closer to you. So Ether is the closest one. Poseidon's a little farther away. Demeter is on the other side of the map, kind of thing. So it is set up, and I think wants you to play it, doing Ether, Poseidon, Demeter in that order. You may have not done that, but as the listener, but that's what I did. Did you do it that way too?
Yeah, same. I went by what is the level suggested requirement for each one, and that's kind of, I went in order for sure.
Cool. Yeah, same. And I'm glad I did. I think I like the story this way. So I think that it's good that they gave you a recommendation, even if you chose to do it differently. But so going to Ether, Aloy goes towards the coordinates where they are, and it's at this Tanakh stronghold called the Grove. And the Grove is pretty cool. It is basically this old world ruin that's a museum about this group of famed soldiers called the Ten, who the Tanakh have basically based their whole tribe after. They're these kind of herald warriors of the past, and the museum honored the things they did. So it brings up significant things they did, significant people, and kind of the attitudes, the process, the all that stuff about them. And so the Tanakh have basically shaped themselves around this.
Yeah, I took it. I took it as they were fighter pilots that they looked up to is kind of the impression I got. And they found this old museum that has these holograms, like a futuristic museum that would have happened before Zero Dawn, of that kind of commend all these achievements and everything. And yeah, it's interesting that they're like, yep, we're gonna focus our entire culture and how we the importance in different aspects of things. We're gonna build it all around this one museum, which I guess, I don't know, it seemed a little not shallow, but it was oh, you really found a lot of importance in this. But I guess they've always had a lot of war within their tribe, so I guess that would make sense that they would really look up to warriors, old, almost godlike warriors. So
and they take their principles from this museum. So it's these people were brave, or they faced overwhelming odds but they still did it, or things like that. And so they just kind of, those become the core values of the Tanakh. And so it's oh, if you're someone who shows bravery or courage or fighting skill or whatever, then you're important. And like you said, the Tanakh have largely been three tribes who kind of war with everyone, including each other at times. And Hikaru is the first one who's ever united all the tribes. We find out that the coordinates lead to a room that is under Chief Hikaru's throne room, but he won't let you down there. He says, you can't go down there. He says, I'm the only one who's been down there. I went down there a few years ago when I became the chief. I got a hologram. It told me what to do. That's why I am fighting for peace, to unite the Tanakh tribe itself, and also wanting peace treaty with the Karja. So you get some more kind of lore about that. And so he says, you can't go down there unless you help me. And he needs help because one of the Tanakh clan, called the Sky Clan, are unwilling to send participants to the Cool Route. The Cool Route's this training principle kind of thing they do, where marshals get confirmed. So a bunch of Chief Hikaru's marshals, of course, got killed by Regala at the beginning of the game, and so Hikaru needs new marshals. He needs new people to, help give his order among the tribes. And so he sends you with Katalo to the Sky Clan. Katalo, as we mentioned, is a marshal, but he's missing an arm. He was at that attack Regala did at the beginning of the game. He lost his arm, but did survive. And so Katalo is pretty stone-faced, I would say at this point. Kind of stone-faced / kind of sad, because his warriorness is impeded by having one arm. He feels kind of the tension of that. But then also is not sure that they can convince the Sky Clan of anything. we find out that he was once part of the Sky Clan, but when you become a marshal, you kind of forsake your clan and you're a marshal, and that's what you do instead. So he has familiarity with the Sky Clan, but he's sort of bad blood, and is also pretty concerned about not being respected as a warrior anymore because of his arm. But you two are sent there to try to convince them. You get there. Their leader is a guy named Takote. He's a dickhead, and basically is like, well, we got this big wall. We're safe from all the problems out there, so we don't really want to come. And so you say, all right, fine. Katalo, how are we going to figure out how to get him to come? Katalo says that he doesn't really think that you can, because he basically wants to sit and see Regala. Chakotay basically is hoping the other two tribes get kind of wrecked by Regala, and then he can show up and just become Chief Hikaro's, like the chief of all of them, because he'll just show up and save the day. That's sort of the Sky Clan's aim here.
So, which in true Aloy fashion, she's like, oh, he feels safe behind his wall. I'll get rid of the wall then.
Yeah.
Of a giant mountain wall that's been there for forever. She's like, oh, I'll just get rid of it. I'll blow it up. And then she sees a old, I forget if it's an old machine or an old bomb that's within the wall that she's like, I'll just hit that thing, blow up the wall, and then they'll come. Which my thought was, if you blow up his wall, he'll probably try and kill you because he'll be mad. But no, that's not how it worked out. She just blew up the wall. He's like, I guess you're right. I now have to come to the cool route. And then that's what happens. That was I felt like a little bit of a leap, but I mean, I guess he stated, as long as I have the wall, I'm not going. So she got rid of it.
Right. It feels like just shamed him into doing what he'd said, even though it's it's bad that you blew up the wall, but I guess that's what you gotta do to convince this guy to not be an idiot about this. So he agrees. All right, fine. I'll send my prospective marshals to the cool route. So you head back to the Grove. The cool route is ready to commence. But you have a pretty strong belief that Regala's rebels are going to attack during the cool route. I think this would be strategic for Regala, but also, probably do a lot of morale damage to Chief Hikaro and the other Tanakh. If oh, you killed all our marshals while we were trying to raise up marshals, you killed them again. So Regala is going to use this opportunity to attack. So Aloy is on the defense. Hikaro is basically you make sure my marshals get confirmed. You can go into the bottom of the throne room. You're all good. So the attack does happen as expected. In the attack, you fight a bunch of machines and rebels. They end up breaking kind of through the lines and actually make it into the Cool Route arena. Here you fight I think this is a new machine, right? It's when we fight the big snake. Is that here?
I think so. I think that's the first time you see, the Slitherfang, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Slitherfang, yeah. Which is wild. Fighting that, you also end up saving Hikaro. You and Katalo, I think, both do. I think Katalo, jumps into Hikaro to stop something from falling on him, and then you, manage to drive Regala off. So, you did it. The marshals get confirmed. You manage to fight off Regala's rebels. Regala gets away still. And Hikaro says, you've more than done good by us. You did what I asked. Please go into the throne room and get what you want. You go down there. You get ether. And when you do this, it causes the system to reset down there. And what happens is the museum displays, more of them pop up. Something that happened earlier is the displays you had, some of them are sort of faulty. So it's you would get every 3 words or half a sentence, nothing. another sentence later kind of thing. Like they're kind of fuzzy, so to speak. But when you do this reset, a bunch of new displays pop up that weren't there before. You also get some displays like becoming in full kind of thing.
And Aloy is, the savior again. Now, like, another tribe is like, oh, you did this great thing. We have all like these they don't call them holograms, they call them something else, but all these like visions are back now, which I'll come back to this just for a second. The idea that when they made this museum, there are some people that are in charge of making these holograms to talking about this military thing that happened like years ago. If you told this person, like, hey, one day this tribe is going to take every word that you said, like, to the gods and be like, oh, this means, and it's going to inform their entire religion and their entire culture of, like, how you phrase this thing about this one fighter pilot. That's kind of hysterical to me. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, no, that's true. Like, that's what happens. Like, somebody writes something down and then centuries later someone takes it and develops this whole belief system about it. But I just think it's funny that like someone's job was like, I gotta figure out how to do this thing, like any job is. It can be kind of monotonous, and it's like, how am I gonna do this? We'll say this, that'll work. And then they're like, yes, the 10, the warriors. It just kind of cracks me up. But yeah, so she's a savior again.
Yeah, she's a savior, super respected here again now. You also get the vision that popped up that was the one that Hikaru kind of taught him to go for peace. And it's actually part of a speech from Elizabeth Sobek, right? Am I remembering
I
that?
don't remember this.
Oh, shit. Maybe it's not her.
I believe you. No, you're probably right. My memory is terrible.
Ooh, I'm questioning myself now. I think it's a... well, because for some reason, I think it's her. But then I also don't think I remember Katalo or anyone being like, whoa, you're in the vision he saw, or like that kind of thing. So that makes me wonder if it wasn't her now. It might have been just a woman who was a pilot who was great, but instead of Elizabeth Sobek. But regardless, you hear the speech. It's cool. Hikaru says, that's what I saw. That's why we do what we do. And it's sort of a rallying point for the Tenakth. All of that. It's good. After this too, Katalo commits to joining your quest. He says, you saved the Tenakth. I feel like I've done all I should there as a marshal. Hikaru has new marshals. I want to join you. And so you say, okay, cool. Go back to the base and train. Varl, Zoe, and Erend are there. They'll catch you up to speed. Kind of thing. So, big. 1 down, 3 to go on these subordinate functions. All right, so after we manage to take Ether back, we upload it to Gaia, and Gaia ends up getting a distress signal from Eleuthia? And this was a subordinate function she hadn't caught before, so it kind of catches Archer's eye, and are like, oh, let's get this. We didn't know this was here, but also it seems urgent. Maybe we can get to it before the Far Zenith do. And so Aloy, Erend, and Varl go to investigate. And while they're there, they find Verbana, who's one of the Zeniths, fighting with Tenakth, like, rebels. And at first, she's basically, like, God mode killing them. Like, they come at her, and they're, like, shooting at her, and she just, like, kills them. Or one of them, like, stabs her with a spear. She doesn't have anything happen, and she just, like, wrecks them kind of thing. But then a group of them are up on like a hill, and they use this like cannon-y looking gun and shoot her with it, and it basically like breaks her shield, and then they're able to kill her. And so Verbana dies, but manages to also kind of kill all these Tenakth rebels at the same time. And so Aloy and the gang are like, whoa, that's crazy. They killed a Zenith. How did they do that? So they go to investigate this like super weapon, but it just self-destructs before Aloy or anyone can learn anything about it. So kind of a wild first event for them here on the way to this distress signal. But they head into the facility to try to find Eleuthia, and they get there and they can't find any subordinate function, but instead they do find Beta. And we find out that Beta had sent the signal in hopes that they'd find her. So when Beta had saw Aloy and was like, "Oh, you like exist, and you were able to escape from them, and you're different." And she reveals a little bit about her past, and that basically she got formed on a Far Zenith ship as a clone, and has basically been just like put to work as their like gadget. Basically, like, you just have to learn a whole bunch, and then when we need Elizabeth Sobek's genes, you're here to do that.
Yeah, basically. She's like their little key that they grew, but that they also want her to, know things about Elizabeth and how how Zero Dawn happened and kind of all that information so that she's useful. But yeah, they just kind of use her as an object, as like a tool that's there when they need her. So she's basically their prisoner, more or less.
Right. Yeah. And that she's obviously super like fucked up from this. Like she's
on the skittish side. She's a little anxious. She's a little nervous. She's like, doesn't really want to tell them things. She's kind of nervous about divulging any information because I'm sure, her entire life she wasn't able to speak freely. So she kind of doesn't want to. And yeah, she's not in a great place.
Yeah. Or ever like interacted with people or been treated like a person or, any of those things. Like she's, I don't know, not well. Her like existence up to this point, I think, has been pretty shitty. But she wants to return to the base. She wants to join up with you because she thinks that you can stop the Zeniths, basically. So she heads back to the base with Varl and Erend, and Aloy continues on her journey to look for subordinate functions. So this leads her to going after the second one, which is called Poseidon, which is in the ruins of Las Vegas. And on her way to where the coordinates are, she meets some delvers who are basically like scrap merchant type people. 3 guys called Morland, Abaddon, and Stemmer. We mentioned Stemmer earlier. I like him a lot because he basically is the member of the group who just narrates the things that happens. And he has a good voice.
He does have a good voice. He's got a good radio voice, or a podcast voice, I suppose. Yeah, and he just is like, the great hero returns, and he's like speaking to Aloy's face, and she's like, okay, and she doesn't really know how to deal with that. That's kind of comical.
It's great, and that like she gets it a little, like she's more okay with it as time goes on. She's like, oh, that's just him.
Yeah,
but in the beginning, she's just like, who is this guy? And then of the other 2, Morland is kind of your, I'd say he's like the enterprising inventor type, and then Abaddon is kind of your and then Abaddon's the like realist. He's like, we can't do that. We could die. Like that's sort of what he brings. Mm-hmm. And in your kind of meetings with them, they were working on a diving mask to be able to go into this casino that's flooded. So this is kind of a cool set piece of, you're in the middle of this big desert, but then you've got these ruins of Las Vegas casinos. But then inside the one where you want to go, where Poseidon is, it's just flooded. Tons of water, like stories of water kind of thing. So, no human could just swim down there. You need a mask kind of thing. But his masks hadn't worked. And so you talk with him a little bit about it and come up with machine parts that he could use to be able to make you breathe underwater. He says, sure, if you can find those parts, I'll build it. I think it will work. And Aloy does that. Aloy now has a diving mask. So similar to earlier, how the fire gleam opens the map up, this diving mask will again do the same thing. Your world gets bigger. I was talking to a friend, and he described it kind of like in Pokemon, where when you get a certain ability, the map gets bigger. You could do cut or fly or surf or whatever. This is sort of the same idea, is you start to get some new abilities, and your map becomes bigger. Things that were closed off no longer are. And that's sort of what this starts to bring.
Yeah, kind of like the Metroidvania aspect of like, oh, remember those caves that. And I also appreciate that when you tried to go into those like underwater caves, if it was too far and you wouldn't be able to make it, she'd say, I think that's too deep, I can't make that yet. I'm like, thank you for informing me. Same thing. Don't make me test it out and then like try a couple times and then to realize I can't.
I agree.
uh yeah, Vegas was very cool. I kind of count, there might be more, but I count kind of 3 areas that are based on real places. Whereas the first area, when you first go into, is based off some lore that you find, is supposed to be Zion National Park. And then this is obviously Vegas, which is in the desert, and then it's kind of like based on the strip. And then later on, you find San Francisco. And each one was very cool. Like, I appreciated each one. Once you kind of get Vegas up and running, and then later on in the game when you're running past, I'm like, oh yeah, there's Vegas, because you get all the lights working and everything like that, and it's kind of neat, kind of in the middle of nothing, like Vegas is.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot about Vegas. It was pretty cool. So your diving mask gets you to the bottom of this, though. You end up draining the underwater casino, and you fight this big alligator thing called a Tide Ripper, which was intense. You also find out in this that you can't fight when you're underwater. So you just, like, if you see machines, you basically need to outrun them or hide, kind of thing. So here, you had to drain the water. You fight the Tide Ripper. This allows you to recover Poseidon. Also down here, this is where the first time where you know what to do with the orbs, because Stemmer was after one. And so you can get him one here. And then, as you mentioned, the lights around the city. So these orbs are actually different, like, holiday lights. And so when you give them to Stemmer, he can actually change what the light show around Las Vegas is, which is kind of fun. I really liked going back to him and, like, putting a light in. He's like, you get, like, Christmas lights, and they're like, oh, it looks like a winter holiday, or, like, you know, them trying to kind of figure out what the things were, which I don't know, I thought was pretty fun. I enjoyed that a lot and made Las Vegas a place I liked returning to after this.
Yeah, their interpretation of things that they have, like, no cultural knowledge of, and like how they perceived it was always interesting for sure.
Yeah, like they I feel like I remember they were, like, thrown off by, like, the bunnies at Easter. They're like, what is this? Or something like
see that, but that would be funny.
It's something like that. They're like, oh, maybe it's this kind of holiday. I don't know. Why did they worship this? Like, yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed that. I think there's one where you can do 4th of July and it's fireworks over it. That was cool too. But pretty cool guys to meet here. I enjoyed them. But you managed to recover Poseidon. So this allows you again to continue on your mission. You head back again to Gaia, upload Poseidon in there. That's good. Now you head off finally towards Demeter, which Demeter is on the total opposite side of the map. So if Ether and Poseidon, I would say, are probably more like the middle or maybe even like the first third of the map, you actually have to go to basically the entire opposite side to get to Demeter. Like, it's pretty far. You head there. You're deep in the Forbidden West. When you arrive there, you get attacked right away by some archers. You end up finding their camp and destroying it, killing all these people. And you ultimately end up meeting Alva, who is a member of this tribe. They're called the Quen. We mentioned them a little bit earlier. And we find out that she's a seeker. She's like her role in their tribe, like we talked about earlier, is to basically just gain knowledge, to learn things, but it's also restrictive in there of who you can tell it to and what you can learn. But you two team up to try to find Demeter, because you're kind of after the same thing, and Alva has shown that she's not a, like, shoot-on-sight person like the other Quen were. Other things you find out about Alva here that were interesting, she has an old focus, so you end up giving her a new one, and there were all this information that was, she thought, like restricted or forbidden knowledge, but it was actually that she just had old software and it couldn't read it, kind of thing. So when you give her a new focus, she's like, whoa, I can read way more than I could, and is enthusiastic about that. And then also that they're from an island far away. So are they from Hawaii? Is that the idea?
I think they're from San Fran. I think that San Fran kind of got that, I don't know if the water levels changed in a certain way where that kind of became a detached area. But there's like the Golden Gate Bridge at the far northwest part of that island.
I thought that was like a group and they were farther away from that. Is that not right? I might be wrong.
I don't know.
Huh. All right. Well, listeners, they probably do know. So tell us what it is. Because for some reason I was in the impression that they were from farther away because they had to like return home from where they are with knowledge to help where they are.
Oh, where they are from originally?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right, because they were like, oh, we got here with a boat.
Right, because they were talking about the boats, and it wasn't just the part later where they're at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, like this is their new settlement. This isn't like their original home.
Right, yeah. So
I think you're right.
That made me wonder if they were like, I don't know if Hawaii is too far. It seems like it would be, but they made it seem like they're from really far away. Far. Right, yeah.
Maybe they built a really good boat. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that worked. That would be something that, yeah, if anyone knows, please write in. We would love to know about that. But nonetheless, they're pretty different tribe, I would say, again, from our other ones that we've met along the way. But you two, in your quest to find Demeter, you end up finding an upgrade to destroy the metal flowers. So the metal flowers are kind of all around the world, again, similar to like the Fire Gleam or the other stuff. And they block empty holes in the wall with vines that you can't get through. But this upgrade allows you to basically like hit the metal flower, and the metal flower takes the vines away once you like hit it enough. And this allows you passage into new areas. So again, your map gets bigger. You can do more after this. But you get this. You get Demeter. But then a bunch of the Quen show up and are ready to kill you for killing some of them earlier. But Alva's able to spare you because she calls you an ancestor reborn. And you find out that the Quen basically have a lot more knowledge of the past than any of the other tribes. So a lot of the other tribes, right, we've met have largely either had fragments of the past or have like been afraid or rejected like the technology of the past. The Quen, on the other hand, have like fully embraced it. So like they know who Elizabeth Sobek is. They know who Ted Faro is. They know who the Far Zenith people are. You know, all of that stuff. They know all of these people. And they're all kind of like legends or heroes of old to them kind of thing. And so Alva's able to be like, don't you know you're in front of one of the heroes of old? This is an ancestor reborn. This is Elizabeth Sobek. You can't talk to her that way. And they're like, okay, fine. You know, we'll let you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like you said, they're very different. They have focuses, which I like that they, as part of their the clothing that they wear, like they decorate their focuses because they're so like culturally important to them. So like it's really elaborate over their ear of where the focus is, and they use like more like sea type things. They have like sea glass and like shells that are part of their clothing. That's really interesting to look at. So yeah, they're just a different group to encounter. And then I do love their leader, who is another dickhead that we're gonna meet.
Yeah,
his name, this is conjecture on my part. I don't know if this is backed up. I didn't read every log that I picked up or like listen to every audio log because there's just so many that I just didn't do it. I don't know if this is what it is, but his name is CEO, spelled CEO. And my assumption is that either he named himself CEO because they looked at all this old stuff that these very important people were called CEOs, and that he either named himself that or his parents were also like higher up in their society, and they're like, he's important, therefore we're gonna name him CO. And that's like where that came from. I'm assuming that's what that is, but I just like that detail that, of course, he would either name himself or be named CO after a CEO of what they think is an important person from the old times. And that's a little tiny detail that I think is so cool.
I agree. I love that detail too. And yeah, total dickhead. That guy's the worst. So from here, though, after this meeting with Alva, this has Aloy heading back to Gaia. She's now got all 3 subordinate functions, and she's at a spot where they're almost ready to trap Hephaestus. However, Hephaestus has written out the alpha clearance. So Aloy, this whole time, has gotten clearance through things being like Elizabeth Sobek Alpha Prime, like this high clearance level. And she realizes they need to get a clearance level bigger than that. And so Gaia says they need to go after Omega clearance, which only Ted Faro had. So he had the, highest level of clearance anyone could have. So, okay, let's go find Ted Faro's bunker where he hunkered down at the end of the world and steal his clearance level. Then we'll have access to being able to override Hephaestus, because right now our level won't quite do it. So Aloy heads west towards where Pharaoh's bunker is said to be. And this is where the Quen have set up their base, over by the Golden Gate Bridge, like we mentioned earlier. We, of course, meet their leader, CO, who you'd mentioned. And he sees himself as Ted Faro reborn, basically. So he's like, I'm CO, and I'm one of the greats of old, back here to, they made the world great before, and I'll make it great again, sort of thing. Like, God, he fucking sucks. And they found this area they call Thebes, which is Ted Faro's bunker. But they can't get in because it's got all these, like, block clearances kind of thing. So Aloy has to find a secret way in. She's able to through some, like, broken holes in the wall and stuff underwater and all that stuff. She makes it in, and she lets them in to Pharaoh's bunker. But before they can go in, CO basically puts himself in Pharaoh's garb of, like, clothing that's modeled after pictures he was wearing, so he kind of cosplays as Ted Faro, and he makes Aloy wear Elizabeth's garments, and is like, you need to do this too, which was super fucking weird.
Yeah. And of course, Aloy hates it because she's like, I'm not wearing that. She's like, he must be joking. I'm not wearing that. And they're like, well, we're not going down if you don't. Basically, you're going to, or we'll kill you, basically. So she's like, fine. And it reminded me of The Witcher 3 when, oh my God, I'm blanking. Geralt, when he has to go to like this fancy party and they're like, no, you have to wear like fancy stuff. Like, here, pick one of these 3 fancy outfits. You got to wear one of them and put your sword away. And he's like, I don't want to do it. And they're like, you have to do it. And he's like, fine. And then he's so uncomfortable. Same thing. Aloy, it cuts to Aloy in this different outfit. And she's just like, and you can tell she's so uncomfortable outside of like her warrior garb. Like, she's like, what am I wearing? Like, I feel ridiculous. And then, yeah, CO is just all about it. He's like, no, like, this is who we are. Like, this is our stature and our importance. And she's like, no, this is stupid. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But it gets Aloy into this. She wants to get this Omega clearance. So her and CO and some of his guards and Alva start walking through Pharaoh's bunker. And along the way, Aloy and Alva are the only ones with focuses. CO doesn't have one, doesn't know how to use one. The soldiers themselves don't either. So Aloy's going around and getting all these data points and just finding out how fucked up everything is in this bunker. We knew Ted Faro was a dickhead before from the last game. He's still very much a dickhead here. And you find out how bad things are. And, he's like, oh, what did you learn about Ted Faro? And you're like, oh, he was great. That's what we learned.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ted Faro is like losing his mind in this bunker, and he's just like delusional and thinking up all these excuses for why things have gone the way they have. And she's like, "It's fine, I guess." And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I thought. He was amazing." She's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, that whole sequence was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. And as it goes, you see Ted Faro start to like kill off some of the people who are in his bunker as he's getting more unhinged in all of this. And you end up finding a log where I think that everyone had killed themselves, or Ted Faro had killed them. But Ted Faro had finally gotten some genetic modifications to essentially try to be immortal developed. But there were also like potential mutations or things that side effects that could happen from this. And so Aloy like reads about this and is like, I'm gonna get this clearance and just leave. Like, I don't want to kind of see what's going on. And she kind of realizes, oh, mutated Ted Faro is on the other side of this door. And Aloy's gotten what she wants, and so she's like, okay, there's nothing else here, let's go. And Sio's like, we're almost at the last door. We gotta see what his like final words were. Like, Ted Faro is the best of the old ones. We have to know what he says. And Aloy's like, I don't think you want to go in there. But Cio, of course, being who he is, he opens the door, and he gets a glimpse of the genetically non-human Ted Faro monster he's become, essentially. And is like sickened, and he's like, burn this place down and kill everyone. And Aloy's kind of like, I told you not to go back there. And now she's dealing with being attacked as this is going on. And like a self-destruct has happened because Ted Faro, being the dickhead he is, made it so his tomb, when he dies, would explode and kill everyone else. God, he's the fucking worst.
He's the worst. Yeah, shocker. That genetic modification to make you immortal would go badly. Would have unfortunate things happen instead of, your ideal, like, the monkey paw where you're like, I want to be immortal. It's like, well, you're going to be a monster also. Like, all right. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Yeah, this whole sequence was fine. I didn't think it was amazing. Like, when you're running out, the whole story aspect I really liked. Running out at the tomb, or not tomb, well, now it's a tomb, but this whole like science facility, because it's kind of falling apart, and there's fire everywhere, and things are falling, and all this, and you're running out, and it felt fine. I don't know. I didn't feel like this, like, oh my God, and now I'm running over here, and now I'm running over here, and now this thing's falling. Like, I didn't feel this thing that you get sometimes. Like, I think of like sequences in like Uncharted, where it's like you're running through an area that's falling apart and it's like really dynamic. I didn't really get the same thing, which is fine. It's not really what I come to Horizon for. But the story stuff I really liked for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That was what I was thinking too when you were like, that part wasn't great gameplay wise. And I think you're right. Horizon Uncharted or like Tomb Raider would be a thing where like a scene like this would be like, whoa, and you're getting out and it's like all wild.
Like really cinematic, and you're like, oh, I just dodged that, and like it's all kind of pre-set, but it still feels really dynamic and like it's happening as you're playing, and really in the moment. This was fine. It's fine.
Yeah, this one more felt like it was your normal gameplay, but there was fire and you were escaping kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which like it isn't a bad thing, but it wasn't the like cool thing that like an Uncharted scene would be, for sure. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, this results in all the guards and CO dying. You and Alva do manage to escape though, and you get kind of outside of it, and Bohai is a guy who was kind of CO's right-hand person, but not like necessarily an ally. It was more like, well, he's my boss and I'm sort of second in command kind of thing. And so he asks you what happened, and at first you like try to be like, oh, like Sia was really sacrificial and like died to make sure we got this information.
And he calls that out instantly. He's like, nah, that's not what happened. He was a little cowardly dickhead. That's not what happened. I know it. You're lying.
Yeah, he calls the lie out, and they're like, okay, fine. Really, this bad stuff happened, and it all, like, they tell the truth, and he's like, okay. And they also say, so we're going to get a whole bunch of information that will be able to save the Quen, and you can take credit for it. Like, you can look good in this. We'll do all the work. And he's like, cool, I'll take looking good. And so then Alva goes and joins Aloy's base. She goes on ahead. Her mission, again, to find a bunch of knowledge to give back to the Quen, but also joining Aloy in her quest. So now Aloy's got the Omega clearance. She's got the 3 subordinate functions. Now they can try to trap Hephaestus. So there's one cauldron called Gemini. This is where... I think, actually... I guess before we talk about that, updates on the Far Zenith have come along the way, even though we didn't talk about them. So we find out that the Far Zenith are the people who went to space from long ago. It's not their ancestors, it's actually them. And they did develop, stable technology to give them long-lasting life. And that they are the rich people that fucked off, 1,000 years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Is this when you find out... It's when you get back to the base, right? And you talk to Beta, and she kind of tells you about, she tells you a little bit more about the Zenith and about Tilda, who is kind of the one that she had the most interaction with, and how she talked to her a little bit like she was a person, and like she would bring her into this like kind of like a digital, like a VR environment, and they would talk like people, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And she got cut off, and then she felt super, super lonely again. And yeah, they kind of detail the whole story of that they are the same people, which the assumption up to that point was, that they were descendants, that they had found a place to live, and that they had made like a new society, and that they were like, the 10th generation of these people that had left, and it's actually the same people.
Yeah, that they managed to do what Ted Faro didn't, that they perfected that kind of technology or whatever. But I don't think Beta doesn't know why they left the Far Zenith colony, though, in space, right? Because she got born on the ship on the way back to Earth, I think.
Yeah, because they come back, and they're like, well, because the assumption is they found a new place to live. Why are they coming back to Earth? And the assumption was that they were just coming back to colonize it, to basically wipe everybody out and just start anew on Earth, which eventually is not the case. But that's kind of the current assumption.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of their current assumption. So, we've got more info on the Zenith. We don't know fully all the way who they are, but we have a lot of information. We mostly know who they are. Also, because of that weapon that we saw kill Verbana earlier, we know they can be killed, even though it is hard. But that they are super dangerous. And also that there's not a ton of them left. From Beta's kind of talk about them, it sounded like there was like 15 or 20. That it wasn't like there was like spaceships and upon spaceships of them. Instead, it sounds like one ship got out with this group of people.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is... So they're getting ready to go to Gemini, which they've discovered that they need, because it would take too long to trap Hephaestus. It would take like many days for just like kind of the processing power and the data to go through. So Aloy's like, well, that's too long. Like they'll figure out where we are and they'll kill us. So she's like, wait, what if there are 2 clones of Elizabeth Sobek? Because there's her and there's Beta. She's like, how much faster would that be? And Guy is like, well, that would take like 3 hours or something like that. It would take a tiny fraction of the amount of time. So Aloy is like, hey, Beta, you need to come with us to trap Hephaestus. And then Beta is, of course, just all out on this plan. She's like, no, I'm not leaving here because they'll take me again. They'll imprison me again. There's nothing you can do about it. She has a very pessimistic view of kind of the entire situation, and she kind of seems to think it's doomed, which frustrates Aloy to no end, because Aloy is kind of the what's next? What do we need to do? How are we going to fix this? What's the plan? And she's so frustrated with Beta, and she doesn't really know what to do with her. And I think it's one of my favorite kind of scenes in the whole game. And the build up before that is that she's like, I don't understand why we're so different. We come from the same person. And Aloy really looks up to Elizabeth and kind of thinks of like, she was very brave and industrious, and like she was planning and trying to solve the world's problems. And then she's like, why is Beta so accepting of defeat, I guess? And she's infuriated by this. And then they have this like conflict where she's like, she wants her to come with her to fix this thing, and Beta doesn't want to go. And they have this fight about it, and it's fascinating. I really, really liked it.
I thought that was great too. And just that, I think that this is one of the first times where Aloy's had to deal with someone who's negative. Like Aloy, disregards her loyal friends who want to help, let alone anyone
she totally
else.
Takes them for granted that people are just like on board with her plan. Like she's like, yeah, of course, like people are on board with my plan, of course they are. And when someone's like, no, I'm not, she's like, what do you mean? Like she's very frustrated by it.
Yeah, and I think like you said with Beta, like Beta made this move to get saved by Aloy and company, but then ever since then has been like, but what about this bad thing that could happen? And is basically like paralyzed by all the bad things that could happen and being captured again and how bad it would be and all of those things. And Aloy's like, well, you need to do it because, fighting for things is worth it even when it's hard. Like that's Aloy's like whole disposition. And to meet someone who's genetically the same as her, but doesn't hold that, really fucks with her. And we find out it fucks with Beta. And also that, just that it's hard for all of them to deal with, and that Aloy's having a hard time dealing with there being another clone of her. There's part of her that she thought, oh, I was Elizabeth Sobek's, like, Hail Mary, I was the only one. And then to be like, other people took this too? Like, how do I deal with that there's another me who doesn't feel anything like me? There's a lot going on there. I really like that too. I think after a while, Beta was my favorite person to go talk to just because their interactions were so unique.
Yeah, because there's a conflict there, and you're getting like growth and just personal growth out of these conversations that you're having, as opposed to being someone you're talking to Aaron or you're talking to Varl, and they're like, yeah, I'm your friend and we're gonna do it and we're gonna do it together and it's great, and it's like, okay. Or they might call her out on bailing on them, like whoop-de-doo, but it's not like an actual like philosophical conflict, whereas Beta has that. And also I really like a lot of the writing in this game, especially like anything that's like emotion based, I think is really, really good. They pull in this aspect of Aloy not dealing with Rost dying, with like basically her father figure from the first game who dies to save her, who's like the only person she knew growing up who had faith in her and like, taught her things, and her only parental figure. And then it is talked about earlier in the game, mostly by Varl, who's like, hey, Ross died, and like, that must be really hard for you. And like, you've been working so hard to not, that you haven't had to deal with it, but it must be hard. And she's like, yeah. And she kind of like brushes it aside. Like, yeah, that's not important right now, which is like what so many people do. And like, it's just like a common coping mechanism, right? For like, anytime you're experiencing grief, is just to pour yourself into something else so that you don't have to think about it. So you just are so busy that you don't even have time to address it. So that's been kind of an underlying thing that's been mentioned a few times throughout the game. And then she finally kind of talks about Ross with Beta, because Beta kind of says the same thing. She's like, why are we different? Like, why do you have this thing where you can fight and you have this this willpower, and I don't have that? And that was a really good moment, because Aloy is like, why is she not like me? We have the same genes. But Beta's thinking the same thing, but from the other side, where she's like, why am I not as strong or as willful as Aloy? Like, I feel like the lesser one. And why am I like that? And then once Aloy realizes that Beta feels that way, she empathizes with her more. And then she like brings up this hologram of Ross, and she's like, well, I had him to tell me that I could be strong and that I could accomplish things and that I had value, and like that she never had, like Beta never had that. And that's seems to be one of the big differentiating factors. And then they kind of bond because they understand each other better. And I thought it was just fantastic. Whereas some of like the plot device writing, I wasn't the biggest fan of, but like all of the emotional character writing, I really loved. And this is like the shining moment for me. This was like my favorite scene as far as like a character interaction scene was this one because it kind of tied it all together for me.
Oh, it's so good. That breakthrough moment's so great that you just mentioned. Of that, like, we have the same genes. We were both outcast. Blah 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 blah. What's different? It's Rost. And then that sympathy that brings that breakthrough moment, and it gets Beta to this spot where it's like, okay, I don't know if I trust this plan. I don't know if this will work, but I'll choose to trust you, Aloy. I'll go on your mission. You do have to promise me one thing though. Don't let me get captured. If I'm gonna get captured, kill me. Like, I don't want to go back. And you're like, okay, I promise. And so now you finally can head out on your mission. And so, we still need 3 hours to capture Hephaestus, even with 2 Elizabeth Sobeks. So Aloy, Varl, and Beta go to one cauldron. This is where they want to trap Hephaestus. But then she also sends Zoe, Aaron, Katalo, and Alva to other cauldrons, and that they're going to cause a diversion. So basically, they're going to do a power surge there at each of the cauldrons they're at. Meanwhile, the power surge where Aloy, Beta, and Varl are capturing Hephaestus will happen in one spot. So then, if the Far Zenith do notice the power surges, they won't necessarily go to the right one. That's sort of their game plan. So they do this. Aloy, Varl, and Beta do manage to trap Hephaestus. Their plan does work, but Hephaestus tries to fight them off. So he starts having the cauldron create machines to fight them. Aloy goes and kills the machine while Varl protects Beta, and Beta works on capturing Hephaestus. This all ultimately is working out for them. Aloy destroys all the machines. They all capture Hephaestus. We've done it. But then the Far Zeniths show up. They're ready to wreck shit. Aloy tries to fight them. She gets injured and almost knocked out. Varl then tries to step up, and one of them kills Varl. He runs him through with a sword or something, a spear. This is horrible, seeing Varl go out. And the Far Zenith scoop up Beta, and they're getting ready to kill Aloy. But then, and Aloy's on the ground, and she pulls up her spear or her bow and arrow and aims it up at Beta, but then can't bring herself to do it and starts to cry. And then when one of the other Zeniths is coming towards Aloy to kill them, a third Zenith shines a big flashing light, essentially, takes Aloy and escapes. This is fucking wild. A lot going on here. A lot of feelings, a lot of roughness.
I knew it too. I knew it. As soon as Aloy kind of gets dashed to the side and she falls, and then Varl kind of steps up with his bow and arrow, and then Eric, one of the Zeniths, is walking to. I was like, oh no, he's so gonna die, and I knew it. I knew it from the start, and then I was just waiting. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, why Varl? He's the best of them.
I know.
It had to be Varl.
I know. It's so rough. It's he's the gem, and he goes out here.
He's the gem. I was very upset. Yeah. So Varl's gone. And Beta's gone, and And then, yeah, we're set up with this whole thing with Aloy and Tilda, which is a very interesting part of the story.
Yeah, this is pretty wild. So Aloy wakes up in Tilda's home and gets to kind of find more about the Zeniths. You get a lot of backstory here. You find out that Tilda actually used to date Elizabeth Sobek back in the day, which is pretty crazy. That and earlier you'd heard one of their audio logs actually at the beginning of the game, where Elizabeth was sad about kind of the last conversation that she'd had with Tilda, because I think Far Zenith was trying to get Elizabeth to give them technology for their like space launch, and Elizabeth said no, and I think they stole it anyway, kind of thing. So there's some tension there, but then also that before the world was ending, Elizabeth and Tilda were close and had dated for a while. So you get kind of an update on that. Tilda also gives you more like Far Zenith updates, tells you kind of how they got there, that she betrayed them. I think one thing that happened, which, I don't know, makes sense. The Far Zenith are people who were shitheads on Earth, and now they become immortal, so they've had, like, I don't know, thousands of years to be shitty. So they've all degenerated, I would say, quite a bit into even worse humans, it seems. But then also that when Tilda first met Aloy, when Aloy first saw the Far Zeniths at the beginning of the game, that she, like, it kind of reminded her of Elizabeth and of what Elizabeth actually wanted, and that Elizabeth was right and she was wrong. Even though Elizabeth died here on Earth and all of that stuff, that she had the right view about all of this stuff, and the Far Zenith way was not right, basically.
Yeah, because at the time, and also I think it's very cool that they planted this thing that is that gives you kind of like emotional context so early in the game, and you wouldn't even know that you could go back and you could play and you could be like, oh, that there's like this foreshadowing throughout the game. Very cool. But yeah, Tilda has since gone off for like 1,000 years and watched everyone just which is it's kind of plays into this whole commentary on kind of VR and like basically the I can't think of the word. Not the meta space, the meta.
Oh,
you know, what's
shit? I'm blanking on it too.
What all the rich people want to make. The metaverse. Yeah. The metaverse.
Yeah, there we go.
Basically a commentary on like that whole thing of that they went into this like virtual space where they could have anything they want or do anything they want, and that they were just kind of content to sit in that, and they didn't deal with any problems around them, that they had access to too much basically, and that they could just ignore all the problems and kind of just hope that they went away. And also they've been so kind of rich and powerful their whole life that things just worked out for them in the end. So I think they kind of assumed that this would also just work out. So they just kind of got lazy and didn't address anything. And then guess what? The new colony that they had basically got destroyed because they could have fixed it and they didn't. And they just, they just got lazy and like rested in their comforts. And so Tilda kind of has all of this history of seeing this happen and knowing that, oh, in retrospect, Elizabeth was right. Whereas at the time she was like, well, no, we'll just start a new world and that's fine. And she was like, oh no, like she was right. This didn't end well. So it makes sense that, yes, that she would see Aloy and be like, oh yes, like I remember Elizabeth and like what the original plan was and what the mission was. And yeah, it's all tied together very well. And everyone's kind of motivations more or less make sense.
Yeah, it does. I feel like they're, I don't know, if they had a game Bible or whatever, like they did a really good job at, keeping this all like so together. Like, it doesn't. I'm sure that there are lots of times where if a game does well, it has a sequel because it did well. This one doesn't feel that way. Like, it feels like they made another one because there was more things from the past and the present that were to be told, sort of thing, which is cool. Like, even with crazy things like people from space happening and all that stuff, like we mentioned earlier, like, yeah, it's cool.
But it would make sense that people would leave the planet if the planet's dying, that like the most rich and powerful would leave. Like, yeah, that's a logical thing. It's not this crazy reach. Once we get into the whole immortality part, well, now that's a different story. But I mean, once you have, the rich and powerful leaving the planet and going to a different place in the galaxy, well, now it's like everything's up for grabs, right?
Yeah, that's true. And if in real life it heads that way, this is totally what they'll do. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It made me think of that Netflix movie, Don't Look Up.
Me
For
too.
all its all its flaws or good things and bad things, I was like, oh, this makes me think of that so much, of like people ignoring the problems and just being like, no, we'll get this money over here, and it's like, no, but the world's gonna end. And they're like, no, it'll be fine. It's like, no, then it did actually end. Like, no, you actually do have to deal with things. Just because you have access to money and power and stuff, it doesn't make problems just go away just on their own.
Right. They're like, but we won't die on Earth. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll just take off. It's okay.
That's totally what that movie put forward, and also totally what the Far Zenith put forward, and what people now do too. So it hits all three.
Yeah, it's really uplifting. Yeah.
Yeah. Really wholesome content for us right now. No. Yeah. So, okay. This ultimately kind of results in Aloy and Tilda having sort of a reluctant alliance, I would say. Tilda, of course, wants this, but Aloy's kind of like, I don't know, you just killed Varl. Your people just killed Varl, and, all of this stuff. And, you befriended Beta, but then didn't, and that sort of stuff. So Aloy is willing to take in Tilda as an ally, but also is going to keep her some at arm's reach because you were one of the bad guys for a long time. So Aloy heads back to base. She crafts an override for a Sunwing. Also, we didn't mention this, but inside this base they have, Aloy can craft overrides for a ton of machines. So I think in the old game, the previous game, you could override like the bull or the horse. Here you can ride a lot of different machines, which is pretty cool. But the Sunwing is the biggest of the birds. So Aloy's got a plan, tells Tilda, I'll call you when I need you. I'm going to go talk to the rest of my people. We've got a plan to do. So she crafts the override for the Sunwing. She talks with Zoe about Varl. You go to Varl's grave out there. It's pretty sad. Zoe also reveals that she's pregnant and was going to tell them after this mission. All the sadness, for sure. And the whole team is beat up about Varl dying, too. Everyone's sad about that, for sure. Your next plan is you are going to go to... There's a battle that's going to happen between Hikaru and Regalla. So there's kind of your final battle between the tribes. And you find out that Silence along the way has stuff to do with this. You don't have quite the full picture, but what the picture is Silence essentially wants the rebels to defeat Hikaru because Silence wants to use all the Tenakth to attack the Far Zeniths, ultimately. Like, that's his aim. But you don't want to let that happen because for Silence, his motto, essentially, is like that the ends justify the means kind of thing. So for Silence, if I could defeat the Far Zenith, it doesn't matter if all the Tenakth die because I defeated the Far Zenith. Like that's sort of how Silence would approach this problem. Aloy, though, doesn't want people to die needlessly. She's not in favor of this. So she needs to put down Regalla and the rebellion. So she rides her Sunwing into battle to fight alongside Hikaru and the Tenakth to defeat Regalla. This, of course, is like a big Wings of the Ten moment for the Tenakth. They're all like, holy shit, the Savior's riding. They flew into battle like the old ones. Mm-hmm. You have a boss fight with Regalla where you can ultimately choose to kill her at the end of the battle, spare her, Or I think you can not make a decision, and then maybe Hikaru will. So I killed Regala here. I don't know what you did.
I totally killed Regala because she was still pissed. Like, even when she lost, she was still like, no, like she was defiant and she was kind of insistent that she was right on. And I was like, well, you're just going to do this again. Like, we're going to have to deal with you again. So I'm like, you're not sorry. Like, you don't see the error in any way. I was like, I don't see a better out than this. So I was like, nah, it's harsh, but I'm like, you got to die. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yeah, same for me. You had to. And also in her like backstory, Hikaru had spared her at one point when he probably should have killed her when she maybe initially rebelled or something. But he didn't, and so she's been a persistent problem since then. So to me, I felt like it was like, we need to write this so the Tanakh can move on, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So, yep, kill her. After this, you're basically able to strong-arm Silence into your plan because you say, hey, your stupid army for your version of how you want to do this isn't here. You've got to join mine. I know you've got your super weapon that you can use to kill the Zeniths. We're your only option now. We're doing this my way. And so now you've got your new crew of allies. So we've got our old group with Zoe, Aaron, Katalu, and Alva. Then also you have Tilda and Silence now a part of this crew, who are, of course, your more reluctant allies. You don't really want them as allies, but you need them for this final plan. So Aloy kind of sets up the plan. The Far Zenith have like a base off of the lower side of the map, and you're going to infiltrate that to be able to kill all of them is kind of your aim. And so she gives everyone their assignments, but then as people are leaving, she calls Katalu and Alva back and says, hey, I have a special assignment for you I only want you to know about. So she tells them what it is, which is she wants them to go to the control room and do something that's secret. And is like, once we're in there, do this. Like, don't worry about us. Don't worry about anything else. Do your mission kind of thing. And Katalu and Alva are like, okay, we can do that. From here, the group assembles outside of the Zenith base and gets ready to make their attack. So you've got Silence and Zoe, I would say, are more your sniper cover, so to speak. They're kind of further away from the action, kind of covering Aloy and Aaron, who are kind of making one ground assault, and then Katalu and Alva are making another one, and then they'll break off to be able to do their like special assignment. So this is where we kind of have everyone set up what their plans are for our kind of final showdown. Our final showdown begins. You fight a lot of specters. Specters are essentially like a machine that has it's not an octopus.
It's like a fancy machine. It's like a fancy, spacey looking, like all the other machines you've been fighting, except it's like a little rounder and a little smoother, and that's about it. And it can shoot like plasma type things.
Yeah, so they have a bunch of these kind of outside of the base patrolling. So you're fighting a bunch of these as you go. Katalu and Alva break off, and they end up using Hephaestus to create a bunch of machines that pop up here and destroy all of the specters. So the machines that Katalu and Alva are pumping out are even greater. And so this solves Aloy's like aim of, right, I didn't want all the Tanakh to have to die for this. Machines can die. Who cares? They're machines. Our machines can destroy their machines. So you've got this like mayhem going on where the Zeniths like ride out to make this fight, and then Aloy and the gang spring up all these machines. So it's like machine versus Spectre versus Far Zenith. So it's like, craziness going on. Silence then uses his like shield destroying weapon. It breaks the Zenith shields. They start getting killed, which was very satisfying to see because they're the fucking worst. Most of the Zeniths get killed, but Eric and Gerard kind of fly away. So Eric is the one who killed Varl. He's sort of your enforcer type, so to speak. And then Gerard's kind of their leader. So Aloy heads after Eric, and then Tilda heads after Gerard. And so Eric gets into kind of a boss fight with Aloy. And then at the end, Zoe joins in, and Zoe ends up spearing Eric through and killing him. Once his shield is down, he's done for. From here, Aloy continues up through their base, and she's able to find and rescue Beta. They also had Beta in on the plan somewhat, because Tilda was able to link up, use her comm link to talk to Beta. So Beta had some of a role in this. And basically, at first expressed she was sad that Aloy didn't kill her, but then expressed, I believe in you still, kind of thing. So you get an Aloy Beta reunion. This is great. You see Tilda kill Gerard, and for a minute, you think that we've done it. We've killed the Zeniths. We've done everything we meant to. Here we are, kind of thing. But then Tilda reveals more about the Zenith, that she didn't tell all the truth. That instead, the Zenith didn't just have an accident happen, and that's why they left their colony. But instead, there's a rogue AI Hades that basically destroyed their planet and drove them off of it. Called it's Hades Nemesis is what it's called. And essentially, what these the Far Zenith did was they uploaded all of their consciousness into a computer and then neglected it, and then it got resentful and sentient, and then fought back and destroyed everything.
It's the most, I don't even know what to say about that. I guess it would make sense. They're oh, we'll just upload all our stuff into here, and then that, I don't know if that was the idea was that this giant AI would just deal with all their problems, or if it was a self-preservation thing that all their AIs are uploaded. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm this was such a meaningless thing that you did. Why did you do it?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Stupid.
It's the you people are so smart that you did something stupid kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. That you have this ego and this infallibility that you're oh, all of our decisions work out and everything's fine, and we don't have to pay attention to what we're doing and look for problems.
Right. Yeah. Well, and just that they could their whole life they've just disregarded things they didn't want to do or didn't like, or
Yes.
whatever. And it's well, you finally did that to AI versions of yourself who you're evil. Well, guess what they're about to be? You know what I mean?
Right. That they can push things to the side, and it doesn't matter. That things that they don't need, that they could just be yeah, you'll just go over there, and you don't matter, and that's fine.
Yeah, if anyone deserves what happened to them, it's certainly them, for sure. They're the worst. But yeah, they've accidentally created this essentially uncontrollable monster who's more evil than they are somehow, and also very, very capable. So one of the things that they did was okay, so they upload their AI there. Well, their AI has all of their memories, so it could remember all the passcodes and all the stuff. So, God, they're so stupid for this. This is the ultimate I'm so smart I couldn't be wrong, and then it's no, you wrong, you're dumb. But Tilda kind of reveals all of this, and she says, so now we need to fuck off and leave Earth, because they're going to come here and destroy Earth, because the only thing that Nemesis wants is to destroy anything we would want, because we were such bad overseers for them, essentially, that we will destroy. They want to come after us in every way. So Aloy, you and I, we're going to go find a new secret planet. The rest of life can go on, get destroyed. Who cares? Nemesis will do its thing. It will think it's got everyone. But you and me will enjoy life in Paradise 2.0 kind of thing. And Aloy says, no. What? If you think I'm like Elizabeth, you know I wouldn't do that. And Tilda's all right, we got to do this the hard way. Final boss battle. So you have a final boss battle. Tilda gets a giant Spectre suit on. You end up killing her. Game over for them. You've survived. You finally defeated the Zenith. Silence shows up and is cool, I'm going to get on the Zenith spaceship and fuck off, because Tilda is right Nemesis is coming. I knew about this too. My aim was basically to do what you did, except I'd be the one getting out on the spaceship. And you're like, no, like you could stay. And Silence sees Aloy with Beta and everyone else, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll help defend Earth. And then game ends.
Yeah. So this is where, same thing, where all the emotional points in the game, I was like, yes, I'm all on board with this. All the plot points, I was like, they're some of the plot points. So just the aspect that, I like that Tilda basically didn't learn her lesson. That she still was like, oh, you'll come with me, right? But she should know that she wouldn't, and that this would be the outcome. And like, no, you didn't learn. Like you thought you did, but you're similar to the other ones. Like, yet you think you're different from the other Zeniths, but you're not that different. And then I didn't like that. Basically, there was like a final twist right at the end where it's like, oh no, they're not coming here to take over Earth. They're just pit stopping and going to the next place. And that this AI is coming to destroy Earth. So they kind of like dump that out and then are like, okay, but Tilda's gone, but Nemesis is still coming and this is the end of the game. Bye. And I was like, it always bothers me when something ends with such a clear setup for a sequel.
Right.
That I'm like, no, this isn't an ending. Like, this isn't an ending to a game. Like, you are setting this up for the next game, which it bothers me. And it kind of makes that whole ending kind of anticlimactic. And the fight with Tilda wasn't that great. It was like, yeah, she was in like a mech that wasn't that big. Like, it wasn't like anything that different or impressive. Like, it wasn't super unique compared to the other things that you fought in the game. And I didn't think that as a final boss battle that it was that impressive. And then you're like, oh, actually, there's this way bigger threat and we're done. Which felt, and they kind of did that with the first game, but that felt less. It didn't feel like such a big deal in the first game because that was Silence and like, oh, guess what? He still has Hades. And I'm pretty sure that was after the credits in the first game. Also, it was like a little bonus, like a little throw in at the end. Whereas this was like a big part of the story. And it just kind of felt a little lackluster to end the game that way. And I wasn't mad at it. Like, it's fine. But I was like, oh, that's not the best. That's not really the way I wanted this game to end, but I still loved it. Like, it's a great game, and all the emotional points and the way that everything connects together is still really, really great. And I appreciate all that. But yeah, as far as like the unveiling of the plot, I didn't love that.
Yeah, I think that's fair because, like you said, with the one before, it ended, you won the Battle of Meridian, and you're like, okay, we've defeated,
done.
Yeah, we defeated evil, it's over. And then you got that post-credit of, ooh, Silence is out scheming, and he's got more machines, and you're like, all right, I'll play the next one. Whereas, like, this one is very much setting up, like, okay, you finished part one of this story, but part two's coming later kind of thing.
Yes, it felt like a part one of a very, very long part one of a two-parter. And I don't love that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think conceptually for that, I feel that way too. I'm really stoked for the third game. Like, I'm all about it in that regard. But as an ending itself, like, I think your high point at the end of this game is actually the battle happening before you ever get to the boss fight or this information reveal. Like, I really liked when you watched all the machines fighting all the specters. Like, it was just such a big, like, it felt like a Lord of the Rings style battle where it's so big and it's going on around you. Like, that was really cool. But the kind of payoff for the other things is less so. Like, I don't, like, the Far Zenith are bad people and stuff like that. But personal beef wise, it's like, okay, they killed Varl, so I have problems with them there. Or they did bad things to Beta. But, like, it's not, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the rival's not personal exactly. You know, it's not like
Yeah.
like I don't hate them as much as I hate Ted Faro still, or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. We did it. We talked about Horizon Forbidden West. Oh my gosh. Really, we've talked about I think everything that I would have wanted to talk about in this game. Surprisingly, I don't have anything new on my general thoughts of something I wish we talked about, but didn't. We really hit it all up. So I don't know if you had any other things you wanted to talk about before we wrap up.
I think. No, I think that's it. I mean, we talked a lot. I'd hope that we'd have covered it.
That's that is true. We said all the things we could about Horizon, very much so, which was awesome. But we do have a little listener feedback from people to wrap us up, so we'll hit up those real quick. First, we got Eli on Twitter said, my game of the year for sure, unless God of War Ragnarok comes out. But honestly, I think this could win game of the year, even if God of War came out. Really solid game. So Eli, a lot of love here for this. We also have Daniel on Twitter who said, I think it could have been better, but I played it on PS4. Changing weapons and items is a hassle. The frame rate isn't nearly as good as something like Ghost of Tsushima. My non-PS4 complaint is she gets the shield but never uses it as a shield. Annoying.
You know what? That's a good point because the melee, it might have helped the melee if you could have like parried things. Because the melee is a little bit clunky, whereas you can really just do combos. But like if someone hits you, there's nothing you can really do about it except for dodge out of the way. But you can't make like a parry a part of a combo, which would be nice. But I also, she has it. And she's just like, no, I am just going to glide with this. The end.
I didn't think, like, I maybe thought that, like, at the very beginning of the game. But, you know, that was 50 hours ago. So I hadn't thought about it until reading this. And I was like, oh, you're right, Daniel. He continues, though, and he says, the story was still good. The characters are great. The music was pretty good. Voice acting was excellent. They made a lot of subtle changes that improved on the originals. I just think this would be a lot better on PC or PS5, though. I played on PS5, so I can't speak to what PS4 was like, but from your point, it seems like I'm glad I played it on PS5, because it ran great on my PS5.
Same here. I had a couple little buggy parts, but other than that, it for the most part, it ran very, very smoothly.
I had one bug, but it was like probably that first weekend of playing, like when it came out. And I think I played, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 hours straight. And it got to a point where it got a little bit buggy. And I was like, oh, I think I've just been playing too long. So I like turned it off and then came back a couple hours later and it ran fine. But there was a part where my like screen got kind of glitchy and weird when it got kind of weird when I was like trying a hunting ground and I was like, well, I didn't really want to do this anyway, so I'll just stop playing. And then I came back and I never had problems again.
My frame rate dipped to like 6 frames per second once, and I was like, oh, I guess it's time for me to take a break. But yeah, that was a while ago. That was a good like over a month ago, and I haven't had much since.
Yeah, same. Mine was very early on.
And Larry on Twitter says, I haven't finished the game 100% yet, but I do enjoy the story and characters so far. But the climbing and some parts of the gameplay seems to be a bit more tedious than it was in Zero Dawn. I don't know that I agree. Some parts of the climbing I think the puzzles to me were a little bit tedious in Forbidden West. The climbing I think is better than it was in the last game, just because it does give you the option of doing your like pulse view where you can see your climbing points, whereas the last game was much more limited. It was like, no, you're gonna jump here and then you're gonna jump here, and it felt like you could do a misstep much more easily in the last game, whereas this game seems to just guide you more. And you just kind of end up in the right place when you jump. But the puzzles I found a little bit tedious, which is part of the reason why I didn't do almost any of the ruins. Because I was like, I got to push this box over here, and then I got to jump up here, and then I got to get this thing, and then I got to jump back down and move the crate again. And it's like, I don't want to do that. So I found some parts tedious. Not specifically just like climbing in general, but yes, I did find some parts tedious.
Yeah, I thought that, like you said, puzzles felt tedious, and some of those of the ruins, for sure. I felt that too.
And Sonia on Twitter says, its gameplay got some issues. The story end is kind of rushed. Yes, it's rushed. Absolutely. All of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, an AI is coming to kill Earth and we're done. Bye. I'm like, what? What just happened? But overall, Sonia says, but overall, I love it. Agreed.
Callum on Twitter said, I'm a good few hours into the game. I've really enjoyed what I've played so far. Annoyingly, because I've been quite busy, I haven't had the time to get back in quite a while. I'm really looking forward to returning to it when I can. Yeah, totally understand that. And then Chris says, I should be about halfway through the game. I think I might like it better than Zero Dawn. So that's good, feeling that way partway through the game. I hope the rest makes you feel that way too.
Justin on Twitter, I thought it was okay. Better than the original, but I didn't love it. Gameplay was good. I enjoyed the combat, but the traversal was pretty clumsy. My biggest problem is I don't care for Aloy as a character. I'll still end up playing the third one, though. That is fair. All those points are fair.
I think if you don't, and I think that thought, if you're not big into Aloy, I could see these games being less for you. But like for you and I both being like, we love Aloy. I think that goes really far.
And Fernando on Twitter says, at times the combat and climbing are more tedious than they seemed in the first game. Super interesting story with breathtaking visuals and plenty of exploration to do. Story, full rating system here. Story, 8 out of 10. Combat, 7 out of 10. Traversal, 10 out of 10. Interesting, because you said the climbing was more tedious, but okay, I'll give it to you. Map, 10 out of 10. Overall, 9 out of 10. Played, PS5, application. That's a very thorough review.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, really went in. I like it.
I wonder if people think back to the first game with some rose-colored glasses. I wonder if we went back and played the first one, if they would still think that climbing was more tedious in the second one, because I remember being very frustrated with the climbing in the first one, but I don't know, that was a very long time ago.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like I feel like I missed spots when I'd climb and would fall down and die or whatever in the first one.
Yeah, or it'd be like I was halfway up that tower and then I missed this jump and then it I remember it pissing me off a little bit in the first one.
Yeah, but in this one, I just did the pulse thing all the time. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going in the right direction because it's going to work. So I like that. And even like the, in this game, they had a lot of those visual cues where it was like yellow. And you're like, cool, that's where I jump. There's no mystery here, which is good. I kind of want that because I don't, climbing's fine, but I don't want to, I mostly don't want to be annoyed by it. And this made sure I wasn't. So I was happy with that.
Aloy did jump the gun sometimes in giving you hints. That is one thing where it's like, I just walked into this room and you're like, maybe I should check out up on that ledge on the top right. I'm like, okay, just, can you give me like 2 minutes before you're hinting at me where I should go? Like, I haven't even looked around yet. Like, there's nothing to indicate that I'm lost yet. And you're like, hey, do you want help? I'm like, no, I don't want help yet. Like, I don't know, maybe a like optional hint thing would have been nice to just be like, hey, you lost? Do you need a hint? Like Tilo 2 did that. They're like, oh, do you need a hint? And I'd be like, no, I'm good. I want to look around still some more. Whereas they were like, oh, maybe that fire gleam in that corner there, maybe that will help me figure out where I'm supposed to go. I'm like, okay, slow down, Aloy, just a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard that complaint from other people, and I think that is a pretty fair one, because it's so early into it. It's like, you haven't walked the whole room, and she's like, what if you use that box to go up on the right? And you're
like, I should stack these 2 boxes together. I'm like, whoa, I haven't even tried yet.
Yeah, I didn't know there were 2 boxes to stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that if that was delayed, even like another couple minutes, or if the AI could figure out you walked the whole room or something, like, I don't know.
Or give me a button prompt. If you want to give it really early and you're like, oh, people are getting frustrated early and you're concerned about that, then just make it a button prompt then.
Yep, I agree. I would be into that. But yeah, overall, also, we surprisingly didn't talk about this, but the breathtaking visuals. This game looks great.
Oh my god, it's so pretty! How did we not talk about that? It's gorgeous.
I know. This is actually maybe the best looking game I've ever played. Like,
as far as landscape, like an outdoor, like once you're inside the labs and stuff, it's fine. But as far as outdoor landscapes, like sprawling landscapes, it's gorgeous. Like if you look at the wall of a mountain, and it just the texture detail on that is it's gorgeous.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, great stuff there. So right on, Fernando. Last up, we've got Laura on Twitter who said, I loved it so much, it got me super addicted. I did all the side missions and everything, but on the first one, I only played main missions and a couple side missions. With this one, though, I couldn't get enough. I think it improves on everything in the first one and adds many great things. Which, yeah, well said, Laura. I feel like that's what we've said a lot through this, and I think that you sum it up super well for us. Awesome game, improves a lot on the first one. Like we said at the beginning, if somehow you sat through this but didn't play, go play it. It's great. I think even though we have said many things about this game, there are a lot of things we didn't touch on at all that were cool and would be really enjoyable for you. So, please go explore those. For me, I mentioned earlier, I'm 55 hours in. I'm looking forward to going back and finding all the stuff I haven't done yet. Like, I know there's still more to uncover. And I'm eager to do that sometime in the next few months. So, yeah, that is everything on this game. So, all right, yeah. Katie, thank you for coming on. I'm glad we got to marathon this game. This was we had quite a lot to say. But do you want to tell people where to find cutscenes and you and Left Behind Game Club and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Twitter. I am Lesperak, Lesperak. I'm up on there. And then cutscenes and Left Behind you can find on all your, major podcasting platforms. Cutscenes is on Twitter and Instagram at cutscenes_pod. And you can find everything cutscenes at cutscenes.ca. And then Left Behind Game Club is also same thing. You can find anything Left Behind at leftbehindgame.club, and their Twitter is Left Behind Club, Instagram leftbehindgame.club. They also have a Discord at leftbehindgame.club/discord, or you can go to Left Behind Club and there is a big Discord button, and there's a lot of nice folks in there. We all, just talk about games, what we're playing, what news, whatever news is coming out. We all we'll talk about it. Any game deals will usually get discussed. So you can come on, check it out. It's a good time. Both those podcasts are a lot of fun. Just positive. We like to like things and sometimes critique things, but, similar to this podcast, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. Mostly love for the things that we decide to talk about, which is good. I think wasting time hating things on the internet is dumb. What a bad way to spend your time.
Why would you do that? Why would you just go on the internet or go on a podcast and be like, I hate things? Like, what's fun about that?
Yeah.
Like sometimes somebody just doesn't like something and that's fine. But then, we usually have an interesting conversation about it at least. It's not just like piling on of just misery. Like, no, it's we have a good time.
Right. Yeah. Totally agree. Nothing beneficial about that, but what you guys bring and what I certainly try to bring is largely positivity about games and getting to enjoy things together with people, which this has very much so been that as well, getting to enjoy Horizon together. So again, thanks for coming on. If people want to check out more about our show, I'm on Twitter at StoryEverPod. Our website's TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That has a backlog of all of our episodes, including 4 other ones that Katie has been on, which are, I think, Soma, Metro 2033, Before Your Eyes, and Abzu.
Oh.
So
Yes.
quite a variety of games, which is cool. So those are all there among a whole bunch of other episodes. I did a solo one on Zero Dawn way back in the day, so check that out too. If you want to support the podcast, you could do that at Patreon, at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. That can get you access to monthly bonus episodes we do that are topical in nature about video games or sometimes things outside of video games. If you want to just tell a friend about the podcast or rate us on Apple Podcast or something, that would mean a lot too. But yeah, again, thank you for listening, and have a great day, everyone.